Hey, this is Warren Redlick. Let's do a Sunday Live. We're going to talk about Tesla. Before I get started, I want to say a special thank you to Bradford Ferguson of Halter Ferguson Financial and all my Patreon supporters for helping this channel grow. I also want to mention merch. I got some great t-shirts. Check in the description below for the link. This is my current favorite t-shirt, The Machine That Builds the Machine. I think this is great stuff. So, and I want to thank my sponsor, Joseph Ramos, J&D Consulting. But let's get started. So, yesterday I posted a video about, let me put my glasses on so I can see better. I posted a video about what I call the battery revenue model. Are you ready? Let's grow. Let's go. So, the battery revenue model is this idea that starts with Elon and Drew Baglino showed us their plans that in 2022, we're looking at 100 gigawatt hours of battery production from Tesla, extending out to 2030, we're looking at 3 terawatt hours. Beta FSD, we'll talk about beta FSD at the end. Okay. So, because I have a plan. FSD is something we'll talk about down the road. I'm not there yet. So, if we know that Tesla's planning on making 100 gigawatt hours, and we know, as Elon said, that that's supplemental to what Tesla's partners are going to provide, Panasonic, CATL, LG Chem, maybe others are making batteries for Tesla now. They're going to make more batteries for Tesla. I am predicting that in 2022, Tesla will use in its products 200 gigawatt hours of batteries. Does that sound reasonable to you guys? Aloha. Does that sound reasonable? I mean, there's the question. Does that sound reasonable as a start? 200 gigawatt hours. It seems like a stretch, and where that leads is it means a lot of vehicles and Powerwalls possibly produced in 2022. It means dramatically higher revenue. It means we're talking about maybe 120 to 150 billion dollars of revenue in 2022. And one of the first, the point of where I'm going to go today is if we go to, let's say we go to 120 billion in 2022. Well, 2020 is going to be in the ballpark of 30 to 35 billion in revenue. So we're talking about a 4x jump in 2 years, which is a big hill to climb for a lot of people. And then you go out to 2030 and you say 6 terawatt hours, 3 terawatt hours that Tesla is going to produce batteries. That leaves another 3 terawatt hours ballpark that Tesla is going to get from its suppliers. Remember, the total global market, they're talking about 20 terawatt hours of batteries. So if Tesla is making 3 terawatt hours of high nickel batteries and buying 3 terawatt hours of nickel manganese and iron phosphate batteries, maybe we'll be onto some different battery technology by then, but we're still talking about 6 terawatt hours of batteries that Tesla is going to use in its products. Then the question is, well, how much will Tesla produce with all these batteries, whether it's 2022 and we're talking about 200 gigawatt hours, or it's 2030 and we're talking about 6 terawatt hours? What vehicles does Tesla produce? What grid storage devices does Tesla produce with these batteries? What other products does Tesla produce with these batteries that we have? Maybe they're making ships by that point. Maybe they're making airplanes by that point. So, but I encountered two big hurdles. I read the comments on the video yesterday, and fundamentally it comes down to, can Tesla really grow that fast? And there's 2 segments of the can Tesla grow that fast. The first segment of can Tesla grow that fast is, can they really get to 200 gigawatt hours in 2022 and the volume of production that it translates to? Can they go from I don't think people have trouble with the 200 gigawatt hours. They have trouble with Tesla hitting 120 plus billion dollars in revenue in 2022, which is 4x of where we think we're going to be in 2020. So I want to address that first. 2020 is an off year. 2020 is a year where Tesla is underproducing compared to its capacity. There's two big reasons why 2020 is a relatively low year compared to where we're going. Number one, we had a pandemic. Whether you believe the pandemic is as dangerous as people feel or not, there was a reaction to the pandemic. There was a reaction to the virus. Tesla Fremont was shut down for a while. Tesla Shanghai was shut down for a while. Production was impaired. Demand was impaired. Sales were impaired. The pandemic affected Tesla in all sorts. They still did well. They still did spectacular, especially in the third quarter. And I think the fourth quarter is going to be even better. But Tesla was constrained by the pandemic. So the 30 to 35 billion we're going to see in 2020 is less than Tesla's really capable of just on that alone. The other big reason why 2020 is suppressed relative to what's coming is Tesla only has 1.5 factories. We have Fremont, which is running close to what will be full capacity. We expect Fremont's capacity to increase in the next couple of years. But let's say Tesla Fremont is capable of producing 500,000 vehicles in total in 2020. We already know next year that the current capacity is 600,000, but for the year as a whole, maybe the capacity was 500,000 vehicles. Then you look at Shanghai. Well, Shanghai only had the Model 3 factory, and that wasn't really running full steam at the beginning. It was just getting up to speed at the beginning of 2020. So, and it was impaired by the pandemic. So at best, Tesla had 1.5 factories in 2020 impaired. What's Tesla going to have in 2022? Tesla's going to have Fremont at full steam, which is probably going to be more than 600,000 vehicles because they're approaching 600,000 now. We're going to have Shanghai with Model 3 and Model Y and maybe more in China. So that's probably going to be more than 500,000 vehicle capacity in Shanghai. In Berlin, let me show you this. I've got a thing here. Tesla Berlin, Gigafactory Berlin is expected to produce potentially up to 2 million vehicles a year. Okay, so just Berlin alone at full, I don't know that they're going to be at full capacity in 2022, but the long run plan, which I don't think is that much farther down the road than 2022, is Giga Berlin is going to be capable of 2 million vehicles a year. And guess what? Giga Austin is bigger than Berlin. So between Giga Berlin, Giga Austin, Giga Fremont, and Giga Shanghai, assuming no other factories are built and running in 2022, which is a pretty big assumption, Tesla's total potential capacity in 2022 is 5 million vehicles. And my model in that video that I put up yesterday, my model in that video got to maybe 2 or 2.5 million vehicles in 2022. So that might be undershooting what Tesla's capable of in 2022. So, but the key point is, how can Tesla grow that fast from 2020 to 2022? It's because they're going from 1.5 factories to 4, and from 1.5 less efficient factories to 4 more efficient, more capable factories. So I think that answers that question. Okay, so the other thing is, can Tesla grow at 50% a year out to 2030? Now, I'm not starting in 2020 with 50% a year. I'm assuming bigger growth to 2022 and then 50% growth from there on out. And that number, when Elon said we're going to produce 3 terawatt hours in 2020, when Elon and Drew said they're going to produce 3 terawatt hours in 2030, maybe sooner, excuse me, that's 53% growth a year from 2022. So their target is to grow 53. And they seem pretty, there's this whole thing about Elon time. And I just have this view about Elon time, and you guys can tell me what you think about this. When Elon says it and he's alone, and no one else on the Tesla team, or in the case of SpaceX, no one else on the SpaceX team is saying the same thing, then it's Elon time. But when Drew is saying it, Drew Baglino, when Jerome Guillen is saying it, when Zach Kirkhorn is saying it, it's not Elon time anymore. It's Tesla time. Maybe they're a little optimistic, but this is a plan that's well thought out that a lot of people are on board with. So, either they're going to reach the 3 terawatt hours of production in 2030 or they're not. You can question that. You can quibble with that. But that's what they said they're going to do. And if they produce 3 terawatt hours of batteries, and if their suppliers, and that's another thing I wanted to say, there's Tesla is increasing their battery production from basically near zero now to 200 to 100 gigawatt hours in 2022, out to 3 terawatt hours in 2030. But Elon said supplemental to their suppliers. Well, let's look at LG Chem. LG Chem said they're going to boost battery capacity. I think if I read this right, they plan to triple production capacity. Okay, and they're considering expanding in Europe and North America. Okay, so LG Chem's on board. It's not just Tesla. But wait, there's one little detail here. They're basically planning to make the 4680 cell. Whether they're making it nickel manganese or iron phosphate is not clear, but they're going to make 4680 cylindrical cells. Tesla, within 2-3 years, is going to standardize on this 4680 cell, which is going to allow massive increase in volume and allow standardization across vehicles. There's all kinds of advantages to that. So, wait, I got it. Somebody said, I worry about demand at these price points. The prices are going to come down. I don't know if I'm going to get to that here. So, suppose they do produce suppose Tesla does produce 3 terawatt hours of batteries in 2030. Suppose suppliers supply Tesla with another 3 terawatt hours of batteries in 2030. And I think, I'll be blunt, I think that's an underestimate. I think that we're going to see a ridiculous increase in iron phosphate battery production in the 4680 cell format, going into grid storage and going into lower end vehicles. I think it's going to dwarf the 3 terawatt hours. I think we're going to see a monster amount of iron phosphate batteries. But I'm limiting myself here to, let's assume Tesla works with 6 terawatt hours of batteries in 2030. And you get this question, okay, well, what could they do with 6 terawatt hours of batteries? And that's a pretty big question. And that demand question that somebody asked, let me just hit this here. This is one of my favorites. I did this. This is not meant to be accurate. This is just meant to illustrate what can be done with 6 terawatt hours of batteries. With 6 terawatt hours of batteries, Tesla could make 120 million Model 3s with 50 kilowatt hour packs. Now, I'm not saying that Tesla's going to make 120 million Model 3s in 2030. I think at least half of these batteries are going to go into grid storage devices and other devices that aren't cars. And I think by this point, we may have 100 kilowatt hour packs or standard in vehicles. I don't know. I mean, I don't think we need large battery packs for Robo Taxis. That's a whole nother conversation. But, I think there's a big question here. Where do all the batteries go? But just to give an example, if Tesla produced 120 million Model 3s and was able to sell them for $30,000 a piece, that would be $3.6 trillion in revenue. And this is one of those things I get people saying, well, and my number, when I look at the balance of how Tesla will make different products, which if you look at the video yesterday, you'll see it. If you look at the balance of, Model 3s, Model Ys, Cybertrucks, which are going to have larger packs, if you balance it that way and you look at grid storage, I think we're going to see revenue, and then you add full self-driving, you add robo-taxi revenue. I think it's very likely we're going to see revenue approaching $4 trillion in 2030 with this model, with 6 terawatt hours of batteries. So you either buy into the battery production increase or you don't. If you don't buy into the battery production increase, then this model isn't for you. But okay, what's your number then? How many batteries will be produced in 2030, and what's going to happen with them? One way or another, there's going to be some number of batteries produced. It's pretty clear that production of batteries is going to scale, whether it's Tesla or LG Chem or CATL. We've kind of hit a point with battery production, with use of batteries. We've hit this point where all of a sudden, even the not so great batteries like the iron phosphate batteries are good enough that they can power vehicles. We've hit this point where solar energy, solar panels have come down in cost so much, wind power has come down in cost so much, that the value of grid storage to balance the energy supply from those sources has become very, very cost effective. And the price doesn't really have to go down that much, if at all, in order to spur demand, because right now it's already price competitive with everything else. So yeah, boats could be a huge demand for batteries. But anyway, this is just the point. This is how much revenue 6 terawatt hours of batteries produces in the ballpark. Call it 3 trillion, call it 4 trillion, call it 2 trillion. It's still a ridiculous amount of money. So let me see here. So I'm going to get this off the screen. And I just, this is, this gives you an idea. Sorry, let me go over here. So this is the growth curve plotting. And so this side of the graph here, I'm not good at this. I don't know what I'm doing. The side of the graph closest to me at the bottom of the curve, you're looking at 100 billion, 125 billion, or 150 billion. The blue line starts at 100 billion, the green line starts at 125 billion, and the gray line, silver line starts at 150 billion. That's where I think Tesla's revenue starts in 2022, with 100 gigawatt hours of batteries produced by Tesla and another 100 gigawatt hours supplied by suppliers. You get 200 gigawatt hours of batteries, you produce vehicles and grid storage, and you get somewhere between 100 billion and 150 billion dollars in revenue. The curves, these curves, the blue curve is going up at 30% a year. The green curve is going up at 40% a year, and the silver curve is going up at 50% a year. Now, Elon and Drew are talking more than 50% growth when they say they're going from 100 gigawatt hours to 3 terawatt hours. So even the silver curve is arguably conservative. Even the silver curve is arguably conservative. The green curve is fairly conservative, and the blue curve is very conservative. The blue curve goes up a lot. That's the thing. The other curves make the blue curve look small, but the blue curve goes up to something like $800 billion in revenue from the current 35 billion in revenue. So even if it's just the blue curve, Tesla is spectacular as an investment. If it's the silver curve, it's insane. And anybody who owns, $10,000 of Tesla stock now is going to be very, very happy. Because that's $4 trillion in revenue on the silver curve in 2030, which works out to about a $40 trillion market cap or a $40,000 share price. So if you have $1,000 of stock at $400 a share, 25 shares basically, then you're going to have $1 million of stock in 2030. Some of us have more than $10,000 in stock. So, okay. So then the question is, well, how can they possibly increase battery production that fast? And they explained it in Battery Day, but I don't think they explained it as clearly as people needed to hear it. Let me take this off the screen. I don't know that they explained it as clearly as people needed to hear it. They talked about, there's a bunch of factors. I would encourage anybody, if you haven't watched the Battery Day presentation, watch the battery presentation again. Or if you have watched it, watch it again. If you haven't watched it, watch it. There's a lot of different smaller improvements, like what they're doing with the cathode material, what they're doing with the anode, the cylindrical cell design. But there's really two keys that make the growth possible. Okay, there were sort of large. Well, one of them is a specific thing. The tabless design allows them to speed up the manufacturing process. It means they can make batteries faster. Without the tabless design, there's this moment where they have to stop the line to put the tab in. Without the tab, with the tabless design, they don't have to stop the line, and it just makes production go that much faster. So that's one big thing. The bigger thing is really simply that the entire process, all the improvements they talked about, reduces the cost of making the factory on a per gigawatt hour basis or per terawatt hour basis. And I think it was something like a 69% reduction in cost per gigawatt hour year of capacity. So if they thought it was going to cost them $2 billion to build a factory, now it costs them less than $1 billion to build a factory, which put another way means they can build more than twice as many factories. And those factories are going to produce more batteries. So the volume of batteries that's going to be produced is going to be insane. And there's, as Elon says, the fundamental constraint is the batteries. There's other issues, there's other things that can slow Tesla up, but it's really about battery production. That is the big constraint. That's the thing that's holding everything back. The vehicles are already price competitive. They're making improvements. They're going to come up with better ways of making the batteries, making the vehicles, so they can make the vehicles quicker. Model Y in Berlin is going to have a much, much faster process because you're doing casting of the front and rear and a structural battery pack. It eliminates something like 370 parts, maybe 400 parts. It reduces the number of processes. It just makes the process of making a car quicker, which means you can make a lot more cars. Cybertruck is going to have even fewer parts. You fold the steel, you attach the structural pack on the wheels, and you're done. I'm exaggerating or understating it a little bit, but Cybertruck is going to be even easier to produce fast than Model Y. And the compact robot, we don't even know that 2023 vehicle. We don't even know where they're going with that. I think that's going to be like wild. I think the production process, I think they have a plan for that, and the production process for that is going to be insane. So, the one thing I worry about with my models is I think I may have understated the growth of grid storage. The pace of growth of grid storage and what Drew and Elon presented at Battery Day was much, much faster growth than vehicles. It's sort of like grid storage is starting from near zero. I forget whether it was like 0.6 gigawatt hours, where vehicles are using like 50 gigawatt hours already. So the scale of growth that we're expecting in grid storage is going to be insane. It's hard to wrap your head around how much grid storage is going to grow. So it may grow more, it may grow to be larger than the use of batteries in grid storage, not necessarily the revenue from grid storage, but the use of batteries in grid storage may be more than the use of batteries in vehicles, especially if they're doing a lot of iron phosphate. So we are going to see a massive, massive increase in iron phosphate battery production from CATL. Tesla has basically unlimited demand for these iron phosphate battery cells. CATL can make a lot, and they can grow fast and make a lot more. It's still not clear what chemistry exactly LG Chem is going to make. I'm guessing they're going to make the nickel manganese batteries, but we'll see. So, and the other side of that is, once grid storage grows, once they really scale up grid storage and they're making a lot of power walls, they're going to sell a lot of solar. And Elon slipped that. He teased that in the third quarter investor call. He said something about, I have my notes here somewhere. He said something about the solar roof was going to be a killer product and we were going to see it next year. I think we're going to see a massive ramp of solar roof next year. I don't know exactly what's going on. I think it's that solar roof is hard to install if you don't have power walls to go with it. Solar roof is hard to install quickly, and they've been working on that. I have my own little theory. I'm going to do a video soon. I'm going to call it Tesla Villa, that Tesla's going to start making homes, because Elon's experience with the roofing project, I think, gives him a sense that maybe the entire process of building a house could be done a lot quicker and a lot more reasonably. And we could have Tesla, taking over an entire new industry, which is home building. Which, if you've ever had a house built for you, you can see what a mess it is. So then the question is, how big can it get? So I'm going to put this back up. I don't think Tesla could really make 120 million Model 3s or even 120 million vehicles. Not that they couldn't make them. I don't think the market would sustain it. I think somebody said that there's only 100 million new vehicles a year. Now, I think if they're less expensive and more efficient, then demand rises. But 120 million, and really cut this in half to 60 million, it's still a stretch to say Tesla's going to make 60 million vehicles. I think the compact Robo Taxi is going to be much less expensive, and that's going to be the dominant vehicle. Maybe it will have been the dominant vehicle before 2030, and by 2030 it'll be something even more efficient. So I think there's this real question of where are these batteries going? But what's the world look like? And this is, I wanted to close. I want to, again, before I finish, I want to again thank my Patreon supporters. I want to push the merch again. I'm not done with the video. I'm just going to done with my presentation. Then we're going to talk questions and answers. So get ready with your questions. But here's, merch. This is the Chinese characters say electric car. The Japanese version really is 5 characters, not 3. The third character here is car, but that could also be train car. Jidosha is the real word in Japanese. And then I love this shirt. I just loved it. This shirt came out much better than I expected. I mean, this is the Giga Berlin, and I changed the colors. I think it looks spectacular. So I'm going to turn it to you now. I'm going to put my glasses on. Where do all the batteries go? Where do 6 terawatt hours of batteries go? If there's going to be 20 terawatt hours of batteries globally, or 25 terawatt hours of batteries produced in 2030, where's it all go? What products is this going in? So what do you guys think? Be careful exposing your assets. Don't forget Boring Company bricks. I mentioned Tesla Villa. I'm working, and if you go back in my videos, I've got a video, I'm planning to build a cyber cabin, I call it. And one of the biggest holdups is you got to pour concrete, and concrete is not necessarily that expensive, but it's difficult to get poured. You need people who are good at it, and it's very energy intensive, and cement is known for being a major contributor to CO2 emissions. So if you're concerned about CO2 emissions, then cement is a tough thing, and there are people working on alternatives to cement or alternative ways of making cement that don't use as much CO2. Or just saw somebody won some competition where they have part of the process is in a coal plant, and they use the exhaust from the coal plant. It goes into the product and captures the CO2 in the cement. It's really kind of cool. So who's building the machinery for the Gigafactories? I believe Tesla is building its own machinery. So I think that answers that question. What happened? Oh, there we go. In 2035, I'll be 85. Let's see. People told me to put this stuff on my nose because I keep scratching my nose. So we'll see if this helps. Let's see. I wish Tesla would put a plant on the East Coast. I believe that Tesla is likely to put a plant somewhere on the East Coast, maybe the Carolinas, maybe Ontario. I think Ontario, Canada is a really good spot for a terafactory for batteries. You're too conservative. 2026 will be the new 2030. Elon's going to be the first trillionaire. Hempcrete is a great CO2 capture to make cement. Hey, DRK, if you would please put a link to whatever you're talking about with hempcrete, I'm curious to see it. My theory is that for Tesla Villa, Tesla becomes a home builder. Tesla starts making homes near Boca Chica for the spaceport, or it starts making homes in Austin for the Gigafactory in Austin, and they make like a 100-unit complex where they either put solar on the roof, or they just use ground-based solar because maybe that's easier, and they do HVAC for the homes. I kind of figured being a townhome complex or villas, that are attached, but whatever. And instead of having a power wall in your home, there's a mega pack for the neighborhood. There's a Starlink-based internet service for the neighborhood where maybe there's, 10 Starlink antennas shared by 100 people. Maybe it's more than that. Maybe it's more than 10. I don't know. I think you're a bit when it comes to Robo Taxi. Europe won't see Robo Taxi at least by 2026. I think that Robo Taxi is going to have early adopters and it's going to have holdouts. I don't know where Europe's going to be. I agree Europe tends to be very regulated. Florida already has very favorable laws. I live in Florida. Florida has very favorable laws for self-driving cars, so I think it could happen in Florida quick. I think China will be an early adopter, and I think once anyone from a place that doesn't have it goes to a place that does have it, they're going to want it and they're going to demand it. So if we have anything close to a democracy, and I'm not sure we do, then once it works somewhere, people will see it and say, holy crap, we want that. Okay, FSD beta. A lot of people are talking about full self-driving beta release. I've seen a lot of videos of it. Number one, I'm not really qualified to say, because I'm not an expert on full self-driving. I don't know what to look for to see how well it's working. It looks like it's working great. I don't think the current generation of FSD is the real big thing. It's not that it's better. It may very well be better than the FSD from before, but that's not the really big thing. The really big thing is how fast it's going to learn. that the new version makes labeling much simpler. I did a interview with Omar Kazi. If you go back in my live interviews, I did one with Omar Kazi, and he talked about this, that the previous generation of the software, which is still in most cars, when there's an incident, it goes to human labelers who look at 8 different cameras, 30 frames for each of the 8 cameras, and they kind of have to stitch it together and they have to label things on each image. And the new software, it's like they look at a clip, 3-dimensional clip, over time. So it's basically 4D, and they label something in the clip, and labeling it once in the clip labels it all. So it makes the labeling process much faster, which makes the learning much faster. So that's going to accelerate the learning. So it's going to get better faster. And then the next thing is next year, sometime in 2021, Dojo goes live. Dojo is a supercomputer Tesla is building to speed up the training. And when Dojo goes live, it's going to learn even faster, even faster, even faster. So the question is, when has it learned enough that we have full self-driving robo-taxis? I don't know the answer to that. Why not just partner with the home builders and just do the roof HVAC? I think the answer to that is because there's so many steps in the process of building a home that could be done better than just the roof and the HVAC. So I'm not saying they're going to do this. I'm just saying this is what I think they should do. I think they should do it. They need to build smaller. Well, this is the thing, Ben. Ben mentioned smaller, more useful homes. If we're all riding robo-taxis, we don't need garages anymore. I have a 3-car garage in my house. We only use 2 of the spaces, but I have neighbors, they don't even use they park in the driveway. This is Florida. It's not going to snow on your car. You're not going to get ice on your car. Okay, it gets hot in the sun, but especially if you have a Tesla, you turn on the climate control before you get in the car. So frankly, I'm planning on parking my Cybertruck in the driveway, put it in Sentry mode, and then I got a security system. So, you think about a Tesla home and you add cameras. You put Tesla cameras on the home and you've got a built-in home security system goes right with it. There's so much you could do with it. Hempcrete versus concrete. If you could just post a comment, hey Warren, look at hempcrete. I'll take a look at it. You don't even need a link. I am overexposed. Yeah, I've been playing with my camera. I don't know if you guys see it. I think the colored lights in the background are flickering a little bit, and it bothered me. So I changed the camera setting to I changed the camera setting to make it brighter so they wouldn't flicker, and I think I did it wrong. So that's something I was tinkering with, but I didn't finish in time for this video. So hempcrete is a very good insulator. I remember those homes of the future from decades old world fairs. We still have too small of those. I think Elon will produce whatever accelerates our transition to sustainable energy the quickest first. My guess is robo-taxis to grid, bigger than grid storage, bigger than semi, bigger than everything else. I think robo-taxi is the biggest winner. Robo-taxi, and I think Tesla building robo-taxis for itself and running its own robo-taxi network with its own robo-taxis is the quickest way to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy, and it's very, very profitable. And I probably said this many times before, but if I buy a robo-taxi for myself and I drive it a few hours a day, a couple hours a day, and I keep it in the garage a few hours a day, and I send it out for 6 hours a day, I'm only replacing 3 or 4 vehicles. If Tesla builds its own robo-taxi and puts it out on the road 16 hours a day, then it replaces 8 vehicles. And Tesla is going to have economies of scale in operating the network, and their transaction cost savings by Tesla not selling the car and just keeping it. There's all kinds of reasons why I think that's the big jump. I just wonder if you run into a point where we just can't make anymore, that there's not enough demand for the rest of them, but they're going to lower the cost of transportation so much that people will travel more. Then I think things like the Tesla, the Cybervan that I call the Tesla minibus, is going to enable better mass transit. And that better mass transit is another place batteries could go. Trucking, shipping. Elon has said it's going to go into shipping. So, I think the question is, I don't know how that would work with a container ship going across the ocean. And I don't know if anybody else knows how many. You probably need megawatt hours of batteries in a ship. I don't know, maybe you need a gigawatt hour or more of batteries in a ship. How many batteries would a container ship need to cross the Atlantic Ocean or the Pacific Ocean? Here's a good question for you. I don't know the answer to that. Let's see. What is your slant on OEM brand loyalty saving Ford? I don't think brand loyalty is going to save Ford and GM. I think all internal combustion engine manufacturers are dead. I think some of them will be bailed out by their governments, and they will die again. They will not survive. How long before Tesla market cap reaches 1 trillion? Worst case, I don't know. Worst case, it's hard. I'm not a worst case kind of guy. I think Tesla's market cap reaches 1 trillion 2022. It's already 400 billion, and it's gonna, if production doubles, if production goes 4x in 2022, I don't know how it doesn't reach $1 trillion market cap in 2022. This is one of those things. You either buy into what they said, we're going to make 100 gigawatt hours of batteries in 2022, and that's going to supplement what we got from suppliers. Well, translate that into how many vehicles and how many grid storage devices they may make and how much revenue that is, and it's inescapable that Tesla's going to 4x in 2 years. If you buy that, if you buy the increase in battery production, it's inescapable. Expensive. That's not expensive bottled water. That's cheap bottled water. I have more expensive bottled water in the fridge. Imagine police with Cybertruck. Let's see. The batteries in the ship would have to weigh equal to the amount of generators used to power the electric motors. I don't know elements, or I don't know how you say that. The world's largest shipping container carrier has said they're going all electric. That's going to be I'm kind of curious to see, how many container ships are crossing the ocean, how many batteries do they need? Maybe I'll make a video about that. That's a good topic. An overnight lorry passenger ferry from Finland to Sweden consumes way over 1 megawatt hour on its trip. So that's a megawatt hour. That's like 1 megapack. 1 megapack is 3 megawatt hours. So, yeah, I think they, do they need 100 and then do they have the space for megapacks? And then would a shipping, because of energy density and needing the space, would shipping use nickel batteries instead of iron batteries? I don't know the answer to that question. The mass isn't important for a ship, but the volume's important. I don't know what's more important for a ship. I think it's volume that matters more. Some people think there will inevitably be an Android to Tesla's Apple with respect to self-driving. Do you think if Tesla chooses to license, they become both the Apple and the Android? Maybe. I do think that somebody else will crack self-driving, and there will be alternative self-driving software out there. I think that Comma.ai is very impressive. I think Mobileye might be getting close. I'm not sure. I don't think Waymo and Cruise are there, but we'll see. But I don't think Tesla will be. I think Tesla might license it, maybe. Yeah, I do agree that Tesla now under promises and over delivers. I don't know if SpaceX needs boats or Tesla or SpaceX. Oh, SpaceX needs boats to get people to the platforms. No, I think that Boring Company is going to bore tunnels to get people to the spaceports. For those who don't know, SpaceX is planning to launch Starship from offshore platforms. And in a video, Gwynne Shotwell showed them getting people there on like hydrofoil boats. And I think that's too slow, and it's not scalable, and it's not good in bad weather. I think it's much more likely, and I think Elon has said that there will be hyperloops to the spaceports. So there will be Boring Company tunnels that will take people to the spaceports offshore. You think it will go up by $1,200 by spring? I don't like making short-term predictions of share price. I just, I guess what I'm saying, when I say I think Tesla will go over $1 trillion in market cap, I'm going where it should be, not necessarily where it will be. You can't predict the market in the short term. It's even hard to predict it in the long term. But for me, it's just, what's the fundamental nature of the business? If the business is 4 times the size in 2 years, then the market cap should be 4 times the size, but it doesn't always work that way. Mass is a limiting factor in shipping. Every kilogram of propulsion system is away from payload. Okay. I'll take your word for that. So then I wonder if the ships would use high nickel batteries, or maybe the nickel manganese batteries would be enough. Maybe you wouldn't use iron phosphate on the ships. You could get rid of the ballast in a ship if you're able to move the battery packs on the hull of the ship. I would assume that you could build ships with structural battery pack for shipping. Why not? Someone will buy Comma.ai. I'm not sure George Hotz is willing to sell it. Maybe. He probably could find something else to do. Germany's factory documentation said it's only 600,000 cars a year. No, they don't need to make 4 million vehicles between the three of them next year. They need to make 2 million vehicles between them in 2022. Warren, I think Tesla should acquire the Boring Company. Am I wrong? I don't think it's necessary, and I don't think Elon doesn't like having his businesses be in public companies. So I think it's unlikely that Tesla would acquire the Boring Company because Elon doesn't want the mess of having his companies scrutinized by investors. So no, I don't think they'll acquire the Boring Company. I think Elon owns the Boring Company and it will continue to partner with Tesla, but he will keep the Boring Company off Tesla's books. Need to replace all those diesel freight trains. I think they are powering some trains with electric. Stock analysts and Kramer are quickly raising their Tesla valuations. Yeah, they're raising them, but they're still well behind. Look up Sea Launch. I've seen Sea Launch. Talking natural gas for ships. Ben, good question. Will Berlin or Texas win the race to production? It looks like Berlin is going to produce first. I think that they're already starting to hire for production in Berlin. And it looks like Model Y will be in Texas before Cybertruck. I kind of wonder if they're sandbagging us on Cybertruck. They're saying they're going to start delivering at the end of 2021. They were early on Model Y. I have a feeling Cybertruck's going to be early too, but we'll see. I'm hoping because I want mine. Elon needs all the profit to fund Mars trips. Yes, that's a challenge there. Elon doesn't want to make too much profit because he wants to grow the company and he'll funnel the profits into growth. But at the same time, once Robo Taxi kicks in, the profits, I have a couple of videos about why Robo Taxi makes so much profit. Plain and simple. Take one vehicle, it drives 100,000 miles a year. Let's say 60,000 miles, there's someone in the vehicle paying. And they get $1 a mile, that's $60,000 in revenue. I think they're going to get the cost down to 10 cents a mile. So it's $10,000 in expense for the vehicle driving 100,000 miles, and you get $60,000 in revenue. Each vehicle makes $50,000 a year in profit. Now multiply that by 20 million vehicles. It's insane. It's just insane. Tesla, I don't know that there's a big market for submarines. Did anyone see the Freedom ship? It could be a Tesla floating city and a Gigafactory, a test space. Could Tesla build a floating island that does everything? Interesting idea. Can you do a detailed competitive analysis? I don't understand where others will be in 2025. Okay, so 11 YouTube asks for a detailed competitive analysis. And I've said this many times before. There is no competition for Tesla. There's no EV market. There are companies that are making similar products, but here's the deal. Sound like Joe Biden. Here's the deal. There is effectively infinite demand for the products that Tesla makes. The goal, just in the context of vehicles, the goal is to replace the 2 billion internal combustion engine vehicles on Earth. If Tesla somehow managed to make 20 million vehicles in 2030, which is a ballpark number that Elon has talked about, that would be 1% of the global fleet. I think they're sandbagging. I think they might make 40 million vehicles in 2030. Well, that's still only 2% of the global fleet. If somebody else comes along and makes electric vehicles, and they make another 20 million electric vehicles, we're still at only 4% of the global fleet. There's a lot of room for competition. They're not really competing. The electric vehicle manufacturers are competing together, are working together to compete against the internal combustion engine. That's what we're looking at. And my nose is getting itchy again. What is the deal with that? It wasn't itchy before. What will happen to all the jobs of ICE manufacturers? This is a great question. I want to deal with this. What will happen to all the jobs of it? So it's not just internal combustion engine manufacturers. There are all kinds of businesses. I made a video. If you go on my channel and you search for 10 industries, I talked about 10. There's many industries that are going to be destroyed by robo taxis. I am a criminal defense and personal injury lawyer. We're going to eliminate personal injury accidents. My personal injury business is going to be basically gone. I'm pretty much retired anyway, so don't cry for me. I handle drunk driving defense. Drunk driving is going to be gone. Driving with a suspended license is going to be gone. That's the most common crime in the United States is driving with a suspended license. That's going to be gone because people are going to be riding in Robo Taxis. So there's a bunch of industries that are going to go away. I'm using cortisone cream on my nose, which people suggested, and so far I'm saying it's not working. I don't know. It didn't bother me. It's weird how that happens. I don't know if it's the excitement. It's the excitement of being on doing this video that gets me going. So so we talked about that. Let's see. What issues on... I don't really like watching Now You Know. That's a long conversation. Marine propulsion should go nuclear. I don't think nuclear is necessary. Transportation as a service, 80% of the cars will be off the planet. Yes and no, Mark. Each EV robotaxi replaces 5 cars, but if they lower the cost per mile of transportation, people will travel more. I believe that Tesla and Boring Company, Hyperloop, SpaceX with Starship point-to-point, all these things are going to lower the cost of transportation, make transportation faster, more convenient, and so people will travel more. So the question was, what happens to all the jobs? Cheap cocaine. Thank you, Snugglepuss. Snugglepass. So it's easy to see the jobs that will be destroyed by technological change. You might be wrong, by the way. When ATMs came along, people thought it would destroy bank teller jobs, and there are actually more bank teller jobs now than there were before ATMs. ATMs made banking more efficient, and it enabled banks to open more branches. So even though the tellers don't handle the mundane stuff that ATMs do, they handle more complex transactions, there's more branches, there's actually more bank teller jobs. So don't be too quick to assume which jobs will be eliminated, but it does seem likely that internal combustion engine industry jobs will be gone. What I said about lawyers, I think those jobs are going to be gone. What's really hard to see is what jobs will be created by the change, or what jobs will be created because all of this, we're making the simulation more efficient. If one car does 5 times as much work, then we're making the simulation more efficient, and that frees up cash, it frees up capital, it makes it possible to do other things. So I would say this, 20 years ago, did anybody know there would be jobs in search engine optimization? Did anybody know there would be jobs in social media marketing? It's hard to see what jobs are going to be created. Now, I have a theory. I'm not saying I'm right. It's just a theory, which is I live in South Florida, in Boca Raton, between West Palm Beach and Fort Lauderdale, Miami. It is very popular here. I'm not a big fan of it, but it's very popular here for people to travel to go to Disney or Universal Studios. About a 3-hour drive. Universal Studios, they have this great Harry Potter, two Harry Potter sections. Disney World has all kinds of great stuff. I'm not a big fan of it. 3-hour drive. You end up staying in a hotel. It costs a lot of money. Well, what if it would take me 15 minutes to get from home to Disney on Hyperloop? I take a Robo Taxi out of my driveway, 5 minutes, hop in a Hyperloop, another 10 minutes, and I'm sitting there in Disney, and it cost me $20. And then instead of getting a hotel, I just take the Hyperloop home for the night. It costs me less to get home than it does to stay in a hotel, home and back, than it does to stay in a hotel. So it's not good for the hotel industry, but you could see Disney going 4 times the size because all of a sudden people are going to Disney all the time. Huge potential there in many ways for jobs to be created in ways we don't think of. Well, so our case says car repair shops would be hit hard. Yes, I think car repair shops, oil change shops would be done. Cars aren't going to be in accidents, so body shops are going to be done. But other opportunities arise that we can't foresee. It's just hard to see. It's hard for us to see it. Need to automate the court system. Yeah, we need to eliminate the court system. That's what's really going to happen. We're gonna knock off 3/4 of the cases so the court system can manage itself a little better. By the way, the court system already feels automated if you're in it. Okay, it's assembly line justice. You ever get a traffic ticket and you go to court and you think you're getting personalized justice, you're getting assembly line justice. Most of the court system is assembly line justice, not genuine justice. Cybertruck flow. Can I be self-sufficient only trading Tesla? I'm 18. I've saved up a few grand. So I'm not a believer in trading. I'm a buy and hold investor. I don't give financial advice. You got to make your own decisions on that. CBD cream, sure. Why don't you just smoke pot, right? I should be like the solving the money guy. People are going to lose jobs. Autonomous cars are replacing them. You know, look, people are going to lose jobs. Look, the guys who made horseshoes lost their jobs when we went from horses to cars. They found other jobs. Universal basic. I'm going to do a whole video on universal basic income. I could tick a lot of people off if I talk about universal basic income. Universal basic income is a sham, but we don't want to do that today. So if somebody wants to, I would love to have an interview with someone who is credible, like got training in economics, to talk about universal basic income. I would love to do that video where I interview somebody who, not just somebody who likes universal basic income as an idea, but somebody who has, you know, a degree in economics or some, you know, genuine knowledge and understanding of universal basic income. I would love to tear you apart on camera in front of hundreds of people or thousands of people. If you want to have that conversation with me, I would love to do it. I've been thinking about doing it for a while. Warren, big oil isn't going down without a fight. What do you think they could do to delay the EV revolution? Big oil is behind the Tesla Q, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, all the bad media press that Tesla gets, all the fake stories about battery fires. Fake news isn't just in politics. All the bad news about Tesla is all fake. and the oil industry is behind it. I think that was one of my favorite videos from Now You Know, by the way. That was a good video on their channel. If Tesla splits into several companies, will they... Oh, so this is... Somebody asked this question, and I was talking about this today, I think today or yesterday on Twitter. One of the big fears for Tesla is that they become so big the government comes after them, which is a reasonable fear. It's something I'm worried about. So my view is that, number one, that's a real risk. But on the bright side, Tesla's going to have so much money they can hire more lobbyists than other people. So one theory is Tesla protects itself by paying lobbyists to buy them out of the problems. The other theory is that Tesla gets to a point where it makes sense to spin off certain businesses. So you could see Tesla Energy separating from Tesla Transportation. You could see the Robo Taxi business becoming its own business, the battery manufacturing business being its own business, Tesla Energy being... Any of that is possible. As a shareholder, what happens? So I owned... when the Palm Pilot... So a lot of us are using Android or iPhones now. Before that, there was something called the Palm Pilot, which was a personal desk... I forget what it's called, the personal desktop accessory or something. Personal digital assistant. And 3Com Corporation owned the Palm Pilot, and they were going to spin it off as a subsidiary. And I already owned 3Com stock. And they spun it off, and anybody who owned 3Com stock got shares in the company in Palm. So if Tesla spins off other companies, you would presumably get shares of the other companies, unless they sell them, which would be hard to do. What are the biggest risks to Tesla next year? That's a hard one. I mean, I think the biggest risk to Tesla generally is something happens to Elon. I think that the Tesla team is strong enough now that Tesla would survive and thrive without Elon, but it does better with him. So that's probably the biggest risk. I don't really have a sense of what other big risks are for Tesla. Just not being able to execute, not being able to make the batteries, not being able to produce the products. Execution is always the biggest challenge for Tesla. And government. Let's see. Elon left OpenAI. Yes, rest in peace, Jack Ricard. I love that guy. Breaking up a monopoly does not necessarily threaten the investors. When the Trustbusters broke up Standard Oil, it actually caused John D. Rockefeller to get richer. I'll take your word for it. I don't think government should be doing it. What we find is that the companies that the government breaks up are usually making life better for everyone, and the government's getting in the way. But what's really happening is the competitors don't like the successful company, making it harder for them to make money. Hello from Pelagner. Hello, Oleg. 1 terawatt hour in 2030 for battery storage alone times 2 each year. 2020 equals 2 gigawatt hours. Okay. A mega pack is the size of 1 shipping container. Don't know how many are needed for a massive ship, but surely displacing 1 or 2 dozen would not be a problem. I'm not sure 2 dozen's enough. I think they might need 100. That's what I don't know. I think the Pacific Ocean would need more than the Atlantic Ocean. Shorter trips would need less. That's an interesting question, though. Massive fuel savings and savings on maintenance for those enormous internal combustion engines. Yeah, well, so this is the thing. When we all save money on vehicles because we're not spending money on car insurance anymore because, the vehicles are so much more efficient, that means we all have more money to spend, so we're able to spend it on something. And I think recreation is going to be one of the biggest things we're going to spend it on. So Disney World, or they have this thing in South Florida that I went to. It's like a golf driving range stacked 4 levels high with bar and restaurant, and you go and hit balls, and there's all these targets you can hit the balls at. I could see them building a bunch of those. I got you shopping for a business jet this morning. Okay. Warren, your numbers are way too conservative. I don't know if they're too conservative. I think I'm somewhat conservative, but obviously other people think I'm aggressive. If Tesla splits into several companies, will they become subsidiaries? Oh, I thought I just answered this, Stevie Lee. If they split into several companies, they would not be Tesla subsidiaries owned by Tesla. They would be spun off. I mean, what I would expect is they would be spun off, and we would, if you're a shareholder of Tesla, you would get shares in the company that's spun off. If Tesla doesn't buy Boring Company, will it have to pay a fee every time it uses the tunnels for Robo Taxi network? I would imagine there's some kind of partnership or relationship, and yeah, there's probably some money transferred. Trains will be obsolete when FSD semi-truck is at full volume. I agree with that. I think trains are already pushing obsolescence now without FSD. If you read the news on diesel train, the train transport industry, trucks are already cutting into their business anyway, and semi is going to be a death blow. I think it's going to be a death blow. Can you share your video link to your big oil blaming Tesla? I think it's I don't have a link. I think it's the Now You Know video. I think Now You Know did a video on it where they broke down why people would fund. The basic idea is, look, they're spending $1 billion a year promoting anti-Tesla news, but it's saving them $10 billion a year. If it just delays the transition, if it delays the end of fossil fuels by 10 years, it saves them trillions of dollars. So they spend billions of dollars on it. That's Now You Know's theory. It made sense to me when they did it. I'm not a big fan of their channel, but that's one of my favorite videos of theirs. So it's Now You Know. It's the Now You Know channel, and I don't know what the video name is or anything. Once they build a satisfactory 4680 production line, they'll need to build 1,000 of them. So the line they're building at Cato Road is going to be 10 gigawatt hours. I don't know how big the full production lines will be. I believe when they build a full production line at, say, Berlin, my guess is it's going to be 30 gigawatt hours. You know, not a full production line, a full production factory at, I mean, I think they're planning to build 200 gigawatt hour battery factories. So I don't know how many lines are in each factory. I don't know if it's, 10 gigawatt hour line, 20 gigawatt hour line. We'll see. Stop using cocaine. I never started. Would Giga Berlin have a paint shop? Giga Berlin does have a paint shop. They are building a paint shop at Giga Berlin. There will be a paint shop at Giga Austin, but Cybertruck doesn't need a paint shop. Why aren't analysts valuing Tesla at 2022 production capacity? Somebody did an interview with a Wall Street analyst who was relatively pro-Tesla and explained when they set a price target, they have a different approach, and I didn't really understand it. I just don't, to me, it's like, I don't really have a price target. I'm just forecasting where I think Tesla's going to be at a certain point in time, and I don't know how you translate that into price targets. I think we don't understand what they mean by price target. I guess I would say it that way. Let's see. They will have it's a next generation paint shop. I don't know what that means. How long will Model 3, this is a great question from Alexander C. How long will Model 3 and Model Y survive after $25,000 Tesla comes out in 2023? Alexander, I love that question. So here's my take on it. Model 3 and Model Y will do fine for a while. I actually think the $25,000 vehicle is an intermediate step to the vision I have. People who followed me for a while know I have this vision of a single passenger vehicle. Something like 80% of trips are the person's alone. So 80% of car trips, the person's alone. So why would you bother having a 2 or 4 passenger vehicle? I mean, you would have those for when there's more people taking the trip. But to me, 80% of the vehicles should be single passenger vehicles. That would be the most efficient. And then you might be able to do 10 kilowatt hour pack for a very lightweight, very efficient vehicle. And you would be able to make 5 times as many vehicles as Model 3s, or 2.5 times as many vehicles as this custom Robo Taxi they're planning on building for $25,000. So I think what happens is in the Robo Taxi world, most rides are going to be in the most efficient vehicle, but larger vehicles will be around for the people who need them or want them and willing to pay for them. Okay. Oh, this is something, Johnny Q brings something up. This was a very common criticism of my video. So the way I set up my video was, let's assume they produce X amount of revenue in 2030. I mean, we start with 6 terawatt hours of batteries, we work that through, we end up coming up with around $4 trillion in revenue in 2030. And then I projected, well, right now we have $30 billion of revenue in 2020, and we have a share price of around 400, which is like, I think that's more than 12x. The market cap to revenue ratio is, or price to sales ratio, whatever, is about 12x. So I said, let's assume 10x and go out to 2030. 2030, you make $4 trillion in revenue. That would be $40 trillion in market cap. And a lot of people say, well, the price to sales ratio won't keep up. It won't stay as high as 10 going out that far. And I think it makes some sense, but I also think it misses something. So yes, over the long haul, as a company matures, you would expect the price sales ratio to decline. Apple's price to sales ratio is like 7. Amazon's price to sales ratio, I think, is 5, someone said. But Tesla's going to have higher margins than those companies. I think this is the thing. Elon said this at Battery Day, at the quarterly 3 investor call. All the margins that we're seeing today are going to be comical when they're compared to the Robo Taxi margins. The value of Robo Taxi, the margins that's going to drive, the profits that's going to drive, I actually think that price to sales ratio of 10 might be conservative. It's hard to get your head around the profits that will be generated by the Robo Taxi machine. And then there's the other side of it, which is like, well, what's the profits? That's something I don't understand. Like, maybe I need to make a video about this, and in the process, I'll learn the answer to this question. What's the profit story in grid storage? So a Powerwall costs right now $6,000. I think we're going to see, as they scale production, I think we're going to see Powerwall drop to $5,000 or $4,000. And maybe it's going to increase capacity too. But okay, you know, with a vehicle, you've got your battery pack, and then you've got everything else in the vehicle. There's a lot of other hardware in a vehicle. The battery pack is a fairly small proportion of the vehicle. With a Powerwall, it's like the battery and some electronics and a shell. I mean, I'm sure there's more to it than that, but there's not a lot more to it than that. So I think the profit margin on Powerwall, when you scale it up, is insane. And I think the same thing is probably true for Megapack. And I don't know if you guys have caught this, but I think PowerPack is disappearing. They're not really talking about, I mean, it's still on the website, they're still selling it, but Elon said something about PowerPack. I think Elon had said something in an interview that PowerPack might be going away. So, let's see. Elon won't do less than 4 wheels on a vehicle. Does not say. Yes, Elon. I think if we get to a point where the world is all robo taxis and no human drivers, he might be willing to go down to 2 or 3 wheels. But how much do you think the margins will be on robo taxis? Great question. So, let's suppose the robo taxi does 100,000 miles a year, and there's passengers in it 60% of the time. The software optimizes, it does better than 50% occupancy, it does 60%. And it's $1 a mile, which is half of what Uber and Lyft charge now. Well, that's $60,000 in revenue. Now, let's talk about that $25,000 robo-taxi in 2023. It's going to be hyper efficient. It's going to have low rolling resistance tires. There's going to be other things about it that make it very, very efficient. You're going to see costs around 10 cents a mile. So it drives 100,000 miles, 10 cents a mile. It costs $10,000. The cost is $10,000. The revenue is $60,000. So the margin is 5/6, right? I think if I understand margins correctly, and I'm not saying I understand margin correctly, the margin is 5/6. Okay, which that's more than 80%. The margins are more. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I think that's like 83% margin. Insane. Solar tiles might turn out to be high margin at scale also. Yes, I think when Elon dropped that, Elon teased a couple things at the quarterly 3 investor call. When he teased that solar roof is going to be a killer product you're going to see next year, I was like, what did he mean by that? What's happening with solar roof? That's going to be amazing. That is going to blow people away, solar roof. Will they do an electric unicycle? No. Elon said we will coup whoever we want. I don't believe that Elon was serious when he said that. I'm going to OD on cortisone, probably. FSD subscription. You know, Matt Burns asks about full self-driving subscription. I don't really understand the full self-driving subscription model. They have talked about it. If full self-driving costs $10,000 starting Thursday, and you paid $100 a month for full self-driving, that would be $1,200 a year. That wouldn't be enough. That wouldn't push people to buy it. So I don't think $100 a month is sufficient price. You know, once it's Robo Taxi running, you know, the subscription price might be $10,000. You know, let's see, if you're gonna make $50,000 a year in profit, you know, you'll see $60,000 a year in revenue. Well, then the subscription should probably cost $20,000 or $30,000. Right? You know, well, that's $2,000 a month. I think the cost of the subscription is going to be insane. I just think that it's not going to make sense for Tesla. I really believe this theory that robotaxi vehicle, the Model 3 and the Model Y, at some point it's not going to make sense for Tesla to sell them because they will have to charge so much money for people to buy them that it makes more sense for Tesla to just run robotaxis. And anybody who got their vehicle before Tesla stopped selling cars, your vehicle is going to go up in value insane. Johnny Q asks, when do you think Tesla will stop selling cars? 2024, 2025? That's what I think they should do. It doesn't mean I think that's what they will do. Jiffy Lube might transition to alignments and flat repair. Yeah, I think that, you know, they'll transition, they'll find something to do. You're definitely going to need new tires. But low rolling resistance tires are going to last long. I just ordered tires for my car. It was like 80,000 mile warranty. I don't believe that, but I'm not going to drive it that far, so it's not going to matter. FSD is to be worth 100. I think FSD will be worth more than 100. Look, let's talk about the value of full self-driving, okay? You're going to have a car. You're going to put it out there to make money for you. It's going to generate $60,000 a year in revenue for 10 years. It's going to cost you so let's just go with this. It's going to generate $60,000 a year in revenue for 10 years. It's going to generate $600,000 in revenue. It's going to cost you a nickel a mile to operate. The cost of operating, excluding the cost of buying the vehicle, that cost is trivial. How much would you pay for something that's going to generate $600,000 in revenue over 10 years? You pay a hell of a lot more than $100,000 for that. You pay $200,000 or $300,000 for that. It's so crazy to think Tesla could conservatively be worth $40 trillion in 10 years. We're all going to be rich. Keep up the great vids, Warren. You have a good grounded approach. So it is crazy, and I do see that when you get out to 2030, we're kind of projecting too far out, and it's hard to make predictions. I think the one thing that could reduce the revenue in 2030 is that the pricing may just come down. That the volume of production and the cost of production may have come down so much that they'll just lower prices because they can. Yes, I'm glad the full self-driving price is locked in for my Cybertrucks. I put a second order in for a Cybertruck the other day. Full self-driving early adopters covered on insurance so it can transfer. I don't know about transfer. I don't know how that works. I'm not really worried about transfer. I think people talk about that too much. If you're buying a Tesla and you want full self-driving, plan on keeping that Tesla. Then you don't have a problem. What's behind increasing the full self-driving price? It's getting better. That's why it's going up in price. I do not think Tesla will need to. It's not that they need to stop selling cars, Graham. It's that it doesn't make sense to continue selling cars because the value of, let's say, a Tesla Model 3 or this custom robotaxi, if the thing is going to generate $60,000 of revenue a year for 10 years, which is $600,000 in revenue, then you should sell it for $200,000 or $300,000 at least. Well, are you going to pay $200,000 or $300,000 for a car? You know, I don't think many people will. Kathy Wood's a big proponent. Kathy Woods has been pushing this idea that Tesla should be doing rideshare, that they should pay people as employees to drive Teslas around in a rideshare network before the robotaxi network goes live. And I think Elon, I always thought it was a dumb idea. I don't think that's a good business plan. And I think Elon dismissed it at the quarterly 3 call. I don't remember exactly what he said, but I think he tossed that idea at the third quarter call. Let's see. I think your projections are super aggressive. Yes, my projections are aggressive, but Larry Apple, I think your projections are super aggressive. I get your calculations, but 40 trillion is not realistic. Okay, so Larry, very simple question. How many batteries do you think Tesla will make in 2030? And how many batteries do you think other companies will supply to Tesla in 2030? If Tesla produces, oh, thank you, BK Spider, for your donation. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. If anybody's looking in the chat, we do stickers and super chats. Very much great. Larry Apple, it's bullshit. What about your Cybertruck Robotaxi? Nope. Roadster? Nope. They will continue selling cars along with Robotaxi. What about you? So, look, it's this simple. Larry, I'm saying, think this is like, I feel like this is one of those things that people just don't get it. Suppose Tesla has 6 terawatt hours of batteries to work with in 2030. What are they doing with the batteries? What products are they going into? How much do they sell those products for? If they do Robotaxi, they own their own Robotaxis and they run their own Robotaxis, how much revenue does that generate? How much profit does that generate? You could do the math. I think the Robotaxi model might generate less revenue but more profit, so maybe that makes sense. But I know it sounds crazy, but it's not. So, Jim Whitehead, I have a problem with the $200,000 valuation for a car. It's a static analysis. With so many Teslas sold, it might be a $100,000 car value. Yes, but look, it's this simple. If the car, if the car is going to generate $600,000 in revenue over its lifetime, how much would you pay for it? If you're only going to pay $100,000 for it, don't you think somebody else is going to pay $150,000, $200,000? You know, if you were going to open a Dunkin' Donuts franchise, you know, a Dunkin' Donuts store, and you were told it was going to generate $600,000 in revenue, it was only going to cost you $100,000 to run, so it's going to make you $500,000 over the course of that 10 years, how much would you pay for the franchise? You'd pay a lot more than $100,000 for that. You just would. Robo-taxis are nice, but maybe we should wait until it's a reality before... Okay, so Uriel, my model does not depend on robo-taxis. My model depends on producing vehicles and selling them. It doesn't depend on selling vehicles for $300,000. It has selling these vehicles for the prices that they sell for now or less. I want to be clear about that. If they sell the vehicles for more and people actually pay it, then they make even more money. Frank, how did you educate yourself on the battery technology and terminology? I read a lot, and I would say if you haven't watched the channel, there's a channel called The Limiting Factor. It's a great channel. He does a lot of great stuff on batteries. And I watched Jeff Don do a talk, and I've seen Shirley Mung talk. I watch a lot and I read a lot. That's how I learned it. Did Tesla ever make, but watch The Limiting Factor. The YouTube channel Limiting Factor is a great channel for learning about battery tech. Did Tesla ever make it 100% clear if Tesla will supply Robotaxi, or will be a mix from privately owned cars also? Elon on Autonomy Day said that Tesla would have its own fleet that it would use in places, that it would deploy in places where there weren't enough regular private owners to supply robotaxis that were needed. Tesla is not a car company. It's a bunch of companies together. It's 12 startups. Will Robotaxi run semi-trucks? That's a good question. Will there be a Robotaxi model for semi? I don't know enough about semi and that business to answer that question. It makes sense to me. I think one of the theories was they would platoon, and there would be a driver in the front vehicle, and there would be 3 semis following it, and they would drive together. That's a theory. I don't know. The Cybertruck should have 4-wheel steering. Maybe. I don't know if that matters. They probably could do it. I think with the structural battery pack and the exoskeleton, 4-wheel steering might be easier to do. Jim Whitehead, I think the price per mile will fall. I'm happy if the cars are worth even $100,000 for a $60,000 purchase price Cybertruck. I do think the price per mile will fall, but at the same time, the vehicles that are being used will cost less per mile. After the $25,000 vehicle in 2023, when you get to the pod car Robotaxi, the single passenger Robotaxi, that's going to cost $5,000. So I think that's going to, the cost per mile goes down, but the cost to Tesla for that mile goes down too. Amazon will eventually have FSD with the Rivian EV delivery fleet. Maybe. That seems likely that we will see autonomous deliveries of all kinds. Warren, do you think Tesla will make much smaller batteries for portable household? I had an idea for portable household items. I had this idea for an April Fool's joke that Tesla's going to make a Tesla phone and it's going to have a 4680 cell. So you're going to have this big lump in the back of the phone, and it's going to have, 2 weeks of battery life. And it's going to have a laser or something, just as an April Fool's joke. What is your liquidation strategy long-term with Tesla? I don't have a strategy for the long-term. I'm holding... I'm not poor. I don't spend beyond my means anyway, at least not too much. I retire, in theory, I hit retirement age in 11 years. So in theory, I start selling some Tesla in 11 years if I need it. I'm not sure I'm going to need it. I'm planning to hold it until I think it's time to sell some. And, at least 10 years is my ballpark. Will Model 3 be built in Austin? I believe it will. The cars won't cost that much to get in the Robo Taxi. Yeah, no, I get that if you buy a car and put it in the Robo Taxi network, Tesla is taking a cut. But that's not the right business model for Tesla. The right business, if Tesla is trying to make profits and accelerate the transition to sustainable energy, they accomplish more by keeping the vehicle for themselves. So they have to charge enough money for the vehicle so that you're only going to use it as a Robo Taxi. That would, if you believe in the goal, if you believe in the mission is accelerate the transition to sustainable energy, that's how you do it. How will an economic shutdown affect Tesla? It's bad for everybody. Four-wheel steering limits the load rating, so leave it a heavy-duty work truck, please. I think you're probably right, Brian Silver. I'm not sure you're right. I think Tesla engineers could get around that, but that you make a lot of sense to me. When will we get more details about solar on the truck? I think, Ryan, you mean the Cybertruck? I think the solar on the truck is a massively overrated idea. I'm not saying I won't buy it, but I don't know when that's going to come out. I assume it'll be when they release it. Elon did say that they were working on Cybertruck, and there's going to be a lot of minor improvements that will add a significant improvement, so we'll see. I think that we're going to see things like the air compressor will be able to deflate the tires when you just parked and you just say, you know what, I'm going to be driving in certain conditions, I want to deflate the tires, and it'll deflate the tires. And then when you're going on the highway, it'll inflate the tires. You probably won't be able to do it while you're moving, but I think they'll be able to do it while you're stopped. Flash hot girl pick for old time's sake. No, I'm not doing that. The Model 3 will be the 20... this is the thing. John Ryan says this. The Model 3 will be the $25,000 car. In Autonomy Day, Elon said they could make a Model 3 for $25,000. So I almost wonder if it's a Model 3 under the tarp. But they're going to have a much more efficient way of making it. It's not going to have pedals or a steering wheel. It'll be a single frame casting. I heard SpaceX was going to go public in the future. No, I heard that SpaceX was going to spin off Starlink as an IPO several years from now. Super long-term FSD will be a cheap commodity. I don't think so. I don't think it will be a cheap commodity. I think it's going to take a while. I suppose if somebody else came along and made a very, very good full self-driving software, that would eliminate Tesla's advantage and that would bring profits down. That's that's probably the biggest threat to Tesla's long-term profits if somebody else does. But the problem is, if Tesla's full self-driving is better and safer, who wants to get in the one that's less safe? I kind of wonder if it becomes sort of like, it's like buying generic drugs or something. Generic drugs are a bad example. What about manufacturing batteries for laptops, phone, LOL, 10 years from now? I don't know. I don't think the 4680 cell format works for laptops or phones. I think it'd be funny, but I don't think it works. Model 3 with smaller battery, 30. Well, Model 3 with a lithium iron phosphate battery, if the car is designed to be more efficient with low rolling resistance tires and it's built with a better frame technology, and it weighs less, then I think you can get to a 300-mile range with an inexpensive lithium iron phosphate battery, and then you eliminate the steering wheel and the pedals, and I think you're close to $25,000. Any guess on price for Robotaxi charge per mile? $1 a mile at the beginning, or maybe more, but long run it could go down. I think long run Robotaxi pricing, if they adopt the single passenger pod car Robotaxi, I think you start to see robo-taxis costing 25 cents a mile, 10 cents a mile even. I think 10 cents a mile is not crazy. And then when you get to the minivan, the 20-passenger, 30-passenger van, I think you can approach a penny a mile for passengers. That's gonna be a really big transition later. Let's see. No apologies necessary, Jim. Glad to have you now. Long-term advantages manufacturing, super relevant to 20-year out competition. Yes. Any guess on price for robotaxi charge per mile? I thought I answered that. $1 a mile or so in the beginning and a lower. To further the mission, you want as many people using it, and for that you need affordable prices, whether it's the car or the software operating it. Well, $1 a mile is half of what Uber and Lyft charge and close to what people pay for their own car. Long run, a medium term, I would expect robotaxi pricing to be 50 cents a mile, which means no one's going to bother owning their own car. Oh, thank you for your contribution, Shehen. I don't know how to say your name. SHN, thank you. When do you think he will do the Tesla van? I don't know. I thought he would have done that. I thought when they teased the compact $25,000 vehicle, I thought that was around the same time that we would see the van. I think if I'm right that the van will be based on Cybertruck, then they will do it after Cybertruck. I think that Cybertruck is a good model for the van. It's a larger wheelbase and wider stance, so it's a better fit for the van. So I think if Cybertruck works well, then I think it would make sense to use the Cybertruck platform for Cybervan. Do you think it's likely Tesla will reach a point where they're generating so much cash they can't spend it fast enough and they decide to pay a dividend? Yes, I think that's possible. Mercedes Sprinter will be the van, maybe. No, I have a video called Cybervan. I like to think my Cybervan. Don't you think that a cyber robo-taxi would be indestructible and better and safer? I don't know that that's necessary. I like the idea of a cyber robo-taxi. I can't predict how they're going to do it. I think that a cyber robo-taxi would make a lot of sense, but it's hard to say. You know, the exoskeleton, and I have drawings of what that would look like. What happens to Ford? I think the internal combustion engine manufacturers are dead. Would Germany, China regulate Tesla excessively? The competitive advantage is too great. This is the biggest threat to Tesla, is government getting in the way. But I think Tesla's going to be able to afford the best lobbyists and the most lobbyists, so maybe they get through it. Google and Apple are the biggest threat to Tesla, the one with the most data. I don't think Google and Apple are big threats. I don't think they can handle manufacturing is really important, and neither Google nor Apple is that good at it. Apple should be that good at it, but they're not. Not on the scale of vehicles. Let's see. Elon has said solar will be as big as autos. Elon said energy would be as big as autos. Not just solar, but energy. That's actually one of those things. I wonder if Tesla's going to make their own wind devices. That would be fun to see. Each Waymo car costs about $400,000 to install the LiDAR. They'll probably never be a feasible. Yes, I think LiDAR's dead. I think we all know it. I think Andrei Karpathy showed in a presentation this year that they can use the cameras to simulate LiDAR, and it's better than LiDAR. So Scott says Foxconn is making a full skateboard for sale to build your own car. Skateboards are dead. I think Elon answered this question. Skateboards are over. The new model is either front and rear casting with structural pack, or the exoskeleton from Cybertruck and the structural pack. There's no skateboard anymore. Skateboard's dead. Mel, thank you for your donation. Thank you very much. Elon said long-term manufacturing with Tesla strength. Agreed. Tesla keeps getting better at manufacturing. How long before energy density gets to a point that VTOL becomes doable? There are already batteries that are energy dense enough to make vertical takeoff and landing jets doable. I should probably do a video of this. I don't think there's a market for vertical takeoff and landing jets. I think that the entire air travel industry is dead. I think the shorter routes will be done by robo-taxis, maybe in loops. The medium routes and longer routes will be in Hyperloop, and then the intercontinental routes will be done with SpaceX Starship point to point. And there's no use case left for airplanes, and airplanes are gone. That's my theory. Should make a video and go into detail about that. I think I did cover that. That's in my 10 Industries video. Warren, do you think we will be able to share our stored energy with other nominated people across distances through the grid? I think that's too complicated. I don't think there's a reason to do that. Energy is the biggest in the top 10 biggest companies with only a couple car companies. Yeah, I mean, I think Tesla Energy is going to be huge. Electric bicycles are cheaper than robotaxi will ever be over short distances of a few miles. So I think that the pod car robotaxi is going to be so inexpensive that you'd rather ride in an air-conditioned robotaxi than in an unair-conditioned and less safe bicycle. VTOL Tesla by 20. You know, Elon tweeted about VTOL just today, I think. So, you know, he's still thinking about it. I don't think there's a market to support VTOL. I don't know how much it costs. Is the big question. If you're going to do an electric VTOL, how much is that jet going to cost? And how many people will be willing to pay for it? I just don't think the market's that big, but well, I agree. By the way, Uriel, I agree that the market for Starship point-to-point is questionable. How many people want to fly from Los Angeles to Riyadh on a given day? Because you need 500 people to make it cost-effective. And I don't know if there's that many people who want to make that trip. I think that's one of the challenges. But maybe if you build it, they will come. Once you make it possible to fly, like I'm near Miami. If they build a spaceport near Miami and I can go to Rio de Janeiro and it's going to cost me $250 to fly to Rio, maybe I'm going to take more trips because it's easy. Maybe. I also kind of want, you know, and that's the thing, for the really, really long trips, Starship point-to-point makes sense. For anything that's, you know, not that long, Hyperloop covers it for most trips. Anything up to, let's say, 1,000 miles, Hyperloop's going to be fast enough that the plane's not going to be that much faster, if it's faster at all. Elon tweeted that the $25,000 Tesla is not Model 3. When did he tweet that, Alexander? I follow his tweets all the time. I don't think he said that. Do you think we, the end customer, will be able to get deliveries from automated vehicles? Yes. Elements or zero. You only have 170 likes. Come on, guys. It turns out that YouTube doesn't really care that much about likes. I'm not worried about likes. If you would please share this video or my other videos with people, that would be a huge, huge thing. Tell other people to check out my videos. That makes people who are interested. If people actually watch my videos, that's a lot more helpful. The likes, apparently, you know, I like the likes. I don't mind them, but they apparently make no difference to YouTube. I think Tesla could make a 1,000-mile car. Yes, I don't know if they will make a thing. So somebody asked this question: could Tesla make a 1,000-mile car? Of course they could. Especially if you get hyper-efficient vehicles with low rolling resistance, better aerodynamics, run it in a tunnel, you know, with low, you know, a vacuum tunnel or something like that. There's all kinds of ways you can get to a 1,000-mile car, especially with the high nickel batteries. I mean, I think that a 400 watt hour per kilogram battery in a model, you know, put it 200. If you put 200 kilowatt hours of battery pack into a Model S long range, you'd be 800 miles easy. And then if you improve the efficiency of the vehicle and you put low rolling resistance tires on it and make it a little more aerodynamic, I think you get to 1,000 miles. But here's the reason why I don't think a 1,000-mile range matters. Okay, where are you going? Let's suppose you're going on a 2,000-mile trip. Let's suppose you're going on a 1,000-mile trip. You go 500 miles and the battery's running low, and your Robo Taxi that you're in signals to the Robo Taxi network, hey, I need this guy, I need another Robo Taxi to show up and switch this guy into another vehicle. It stops on the side of the road, or, you know, in a service area or whatever. There's another vehicle waiting for you. You get out, you hop in, maybe you move a couple bags. Takes you 2 minutes, and then you ride another 500 miles in the next vehicle. What did you save by having the 1,000-mile vehicle versus that vehicle having to carry double the weight in batteries? I don't think it makes sense. Let's see. Elon replied to Kathy Woods, who spoke of the Model 3 as a 25K car, and Elon refuted that. Okay, I'm going to check that out. I'm going to look for that tweet. Thank you, Vaco. If you could put a link to it in the comments, Vaco, I'll see it. I didn't see that tweet, and I swear I look at I think I follow both of them, and I have Elon's tweets on notifications. I see every tweet he makes, but maybe I missed it. I think the Semi could do 1,000 miles. Oh, this is actually, somebody mentioned Semi, and Elon said something. I don't know. This is one of the things. He said something in the Q3 call, and tell me if you caught this. Elon said that Semi uses 4 or 5 times the batteries of a regular car. Tell me if you put in the comments if you heard him say that. I heard him say that in the third quarter call. I think I still have my notes. I could find out where he said it. I may make a video just about this. This was mind-blowing. I was projecting Semi as having the 500-mile range Semi as having a 1 megawatt hour pack. That it's going to need, it was like 2 miles. I think it was 2 kilowatt hours per mile was the number that I've heard people talking about for for electric vehicles. So, well, the Model S has a 100 kilowatt hour pack. So if Semi has 5 times the pack of Model S, that means it's only going to have a 500 kilowatt hour pack. Is it going to be able to pull 500 miles with a full load? With a 500? Because if that's true, then Semi is, excuse my French, but that's fucking amazing. Okay, that just... If Semi only has a 500 kilowatt hour pack and it has 500 miles of range, that blows everything out of the water. Because my models have Semi as having a 1,000 kilowatt hour pack for the 500 mile range version and a 600 kilowatt hour pack for the 300 mile range version. To get down to 500 kilowatt hours for 500 miles range, that is insane. Will the China-made Model 3 now being delivered to Australia, the base cost is still around? I think that the China Model 3 will cost less in Australia, but I think there's a, where's the next Gigafactory is. I have a video about where the next Gigafactory is. I do think we're going to see a battery factory in Japan by Panasonic and a Gigafactory by Tesla in Japan. And they drive on the same side of the road as Australia, so it might be Japanese vehicles going to Australia. There's another theory that Tesla will build a Gigafactory in Australia to make cars, and they will export from Australia to Southeast Asia. There was a news story. It's widely thought that Tesla is going to build a battery factory in Indonesia. A lot of people don't know about Indonesia. Indonesia is the 4th largest population in the world. It is the 16th largest economy in the world, and it is the largest nickel reserves in the world, or the largest nickel producer in the world. So there's a lot of likelihood that Tesla's going to have a battery factory in Indonesia. Would they make cars there? Not clear. Somebody said that they're not part of the trade network. So I could certainly see battery factory in Australia as well, and I could see a vehicle factory in Australia. And, ideally, Tesla would be building factories in India, which is the 2nd largest population in the world. But India is a mess. Bureaucratically, it's a mess. So, could Australian vehicles be exported to India? I think there's a lot of rifts between China and India, so maybe you wouldn't export Chinese vehicles to India, but you could export Australian cars to India. Could Australian vehicles be exported to the Arab world and to Africa? I think there's a lot of potential there. Do I think there will be freight Hyperloops or Starship Earth to Earth? I definitely think Starship Earth to Earth is happening. I don't just say it because Elon said it. I say it because Gwynne Shotwell said it. I do think that loops and Hyperloops will be used for freight, and I think Starship will be used for freight as well. I think they're already talking to the military about using Starship for transporting cargo. Perhaps they are optimizing low rolling resistance truck tires. That would be a lot. Another factor is making a rounded rear trailer door, which gained a... Okay, so the aerodynamics could really help. It's amazing. I do follow Gary Black. What did Gary Black say? Matt, I follow Gary Black on Twitter. Love that guy. Does the battery charge degrade after sitting for a long period of time? Yes. There is some degradation in battery if the battery is fully charged while sitting for a long time. If the battery's around 50% charge, it holds up a lot better. And that's with old battery tech. I'm not sure about new battery tech. Tesla needs a minimum range of 400 miles for their cars. So David Cohen says Tesla needs a minimum of 400 miles of range. I disagree. Robo taxis, here's my theory. You guys can tell me what you think of this. I probably said this before. Robo taxis only need 200 miles of range. Here's why. Not all robo-taxis, urban robo-taxis. Urban, suburban robo-taxis. Starts at 6 a.m., drives 150 miles, does, 5, 10 rides, whatever. After it drives 150 miles, it's got 50 miles left in the battery pack. It goes to a charging station and charges. And it could go 180 miles or 120 miles, whatever. But coordinating with the network, it goes at an optimal time to charge up for the rest of the day. Does another 150 miles the rest of the day. 300 miles a day total. It made $300 in revenue. Times 365 days works out to that 100,000. Well, sorry, it did that works out to 100,000 miles. 600 of those, 60% of those miles being paid. So it has to do 300 miles a day. To get 100,000 miles a year on your robo-taxi needs to do 300 miles a day, roughly. So that's 150 miles charge, 150 miles. You're done. Why do you need more than 200 miles of range in a vehicle that can do 150 miles charge for half an hour and do the rest of its run? Charging time's not really that. I don't think charging time is that important. So passengers have to stop for nature breaks even if the car doesn't need to stop. Gary Black is a guy on Twitter that I follow. He tweets about Tesla a lot. Cyber trailer for Tesla Semi. Interesting. Could they come up with a trailer that's more efficient than the trailers to go with Semi? I don't think that's the plan, but maybe. Economics will necessitate many things going into Hyperloop. Yeah, Hyperloop's going to be really interesting to see what that does. There's a lot of designs for Hyperloop that have a really long train, and I think that misses the point. That you don't need a long train in Hyperloop. You could have something that seats four. You know, could you have a single passenger vehicle in Hyperloop? Would that make sense? Where's the you know, I don't know what the economies of scale are of having a 1 passenger vehicle in Hyperloop versus a 5 passenger, 10 passenger, 20 passenger. And what I love is you'll see these Hyperloops designs and they look really aerodynamic. It doesn't need to be aerodynamic. It's a vacuum tunnel. I mean, maybe there's some air left in the tunnel. I don't know the idea there, but they look really aerodynamic and I don't know why. I have a friend who drove for Lyft and he only did 250 miles a day working 8 to 10 hours. Yeah, no, Tesla is investing in apocalypse tech. Yeah, well, that's my idea for Tesla Villa. You make them out of 3mm hardened stainless steel, the same stainless steel they're making Cybertruck and Starship out of, and you make it that way. That would be cool. Let's see. Tesla will have 1 million car sales in 2021. I think that Tesla will sell 1 million cars or more in 2021. I think it might be 1.2 million or 1.5 million. I think Elon's sandbagging us there. He said the 850,000 to 1 million estimate wasn't far off. What did he mean? I don't think he's thinking 600,000. I think he's thinking more than 1 million. The math is awesome on 3 truck trains. Imagine 2 drivers in the first truck legally allowed to drive the whole fleet. Yeah, I agree. The platooning idea is huge. Hyperloop is only a partial vacuum. Terry, do you know what's the atmospheric pressure in a Hyperloop? I thought it was a pretty substantial vacuum. I don't know. That's a really good question. How low pressure is it? Next Gigafactory in Thailand. Thailand is possible. It's in my video. I did a video about that and I included Thailand as a possibility. I think Australia makes a lot of sense. But, you know, Thailand, I think we need a lot of factories, so maybe it's all of them. All the above. Building Hyperloops everywhere is going to be one hell of an undertaking, kind of like the interstate project. So people don't get this. If you don't follow it, there's a channel called The Boring Revolution. He just does live streams, mostly. But his depiction, I think, he and I both agree that Boring Company is going to get down to $5 million a mile per lane in the per tunnel. And that's competitive with highways, and you can build them every level you want. I think it's much less expensive than a lot of highways. So I think once they get the boring machines down to an efficient way that they're comfortable with it, they're just going to build more boring machines and they're going to make tunnels like you wouldn't believe. It's going to be cheaper to do Hyperloop in tunnels than it is going to be on the ground, because you don't have to pay for real estate rights. If 180,000 in Q4, what's Q1 2021? I think it's more than 180,000 in Q4. I mean, look, they said that the current capacity at Fremont is 590,000 vehicles. Well, that's you know, a quarter of that is basically 150,000 just out of Fremont. And Shanghai, I think, is at 250, so a quarter of that is 60,000. So you add it together, 250 plus 590 is over 800,000 vehicles. I think you're talking about 210,000 vehicles in Q4, not 180,000. The Hyperloop is described as 1/10 of normal pressure. Interesting. Okay. So 1/10 of normal pressure, you would still want aerodynamic design for 600 miles an hour. Yes, I'm down with that. Okay. But they'll still be very efficient. Mexico will definitely get a Gigafactory. I think that's very, very, very possible. I think Brazil makes a lot of sense for a Gigafactory. Hyperloop will also be cheaper because maintenance will be way cheaper. Very interesting. Let's see. Proofrock is a plunge launched. Yes, Proofrock is going to be interesting. You call it plunge launched. I haven't seen that term. Steel expands in sunlight. Underground hyperloops is the plan. Interesting. Not going to kill. Let's see. If they exceed 500,000 deliveries this year, stock will skyrocket. The stock's going to skyrocket anyway. What's the profit that's going to drive that? I think that, first of all, I hate predicting short-term stock prices, but I think that the earnings, Wall Street tends to be driven by earnings. And I think if they deliver, let's say I'm correct, and they do over 200,000 cars in Q4, I think 210. But let's say it's 200,000 cars in Q4. I forget what that total number is. It's not just that the total number of vehicles made exceeds 500,000. It's that the profit story in Q4 is even bigger. And people start seeing the profit growth, the earnings growth. And that's what really starts to drive it. How much the demand for Tesla? Is there a million people who want to buy a Tesla? Anybody who's thinking, now I'm biased here, right? Because I'm a Tesla fan. Check out the merch. My next car is going to be a Tesla. I don't think it makes sense to buy anything other than a Tesla in the short run until somebody comes up with an electric vehicle that can drive itself. The value of buying a Tesla for, let's say, $40,000, the cost of ownership over the next 5 years is so much lower than the other vehicle you might buy. And then really, you sell it for the same amount you paid for it, if not more, at the end of the run. But you don't sell it, you just keep it. Or you put it in the you wouldn't even sell your car anymore. You just put it in the Robo Taxi network and buy another car if you can afford to buy another car. Hyperloop carriage is supposed to contain turbines to pump. Interesting idea. How much is that? Okay, Hyperloop expansion is a non-issue. Pipelines are a good example why this is true. Hyperloop is only maglev. I don't know if it's maglev. Is that true? I don't hate that. That would probably make it even more efficient. We aren't cutting the price of Model 3 to $25K. I was referring to a future car that will be smaller than Model 3. I missed that. I can't believe I didn't see that tweet. I'm checking Twitter like 10 times a day looking for Elon's tweets. How did I miss that? I will look it up. At least 50% of people I talk to haven't heard of Tesla yet. Fleet bean counters will be unable to compete. Let's see. Tesla home full integration 2021. So I think I talked about this earlier in the video, Frank, that I wouldn't be surprised to see Tesla go into home building a whole package. The roof experience, the HVAC concept. I don't think it's crazy for Tesla to build homes. It's a market that's ripe for, one of the things that Elon looks for in a business is the market ripe for disruption, and home building is a market that is ripe for disruption. And I think we could see, why not build 100 homes near Giga Austin or Boca Chica and take it as a shot and see how it goes. Let's see. When do you expect Tesla's battery recycling program to get going? Battery recycling will not be important until the vehicles that have them start wearing out, which is in volume, which is 10 years from now. So they are recycling batteries already. They will do more. And JB Straubel, who's the former chief technology officer, has his own startup for battery recycling. It's happening, it's growing, but it's not going to matter until there's a lot of vehicles ready to have their batteries recycled, which is 10 years away or more. Yes, I ordered Cybertruck. I ordered a Cybertruck in the first hour, dual motor with full self-driving, and I recently ordered a second one just because. The used ICE market will be flooded. I believe that ICE vehicles, you will have to pay people to take your internal combustion engine vehicle away. We are about 5 years from internal combustion engine vehicles having no resale value. That's an opinion. They're going to be basically worthless. Well, yeah, things like, so talking about Tesla Villa. I love calling it Tesla Villa. We got Tesla Kila. We got, so Tesla Villa. I think there's a lot of different ways of doing it. I like the stainless steel idea, but, if you think about how they built Giga Berlin and how they're building Giga Austin, can they use the techniques that they're using to build factories to build homes quickly and efficiently? Whether it's the way they're building Starship or the way they're building factories in a very, very efficient manner. Can they build homes that way? And then could they? And there's the question I don't know the answer to. Let's suppose you're Tesla and you build a development with 100 homes. Do you put solar roof? Keep in mind, solar roof tiles are expensive. Could you do a cheap roofing solution without solar and then do ground solar? So people tell me, and somebody tell me what you think about this. I keep hearing people telling me that ground solar is cheaper than roof solar. I don't know if that's true or if it's not true, but people keep telling me that. So my question is, if that's true, if ground solar is cheaper than roof solar, maybe it makes sense to just build ground-based solar, and then instead of having a power wall in your house, they built a neighborhood with 100 homes, they put a mega pack in the neighborhood. And I guess I'd say, suppose they did it with apartments rather than homes. You're not buying it, you're living in an apartment. Or, you know, a villa that's rented, you're renting. So, but Tesla's providing the electricity with the solar panels, whether it's a ground-based solar or it's roof-based solar. They're using prefab to build Giga Berlin, hence so could they do prefab to build that? FSD will have one beta version after another. Need Dojo, yes. I doubt ICE vehicles will greatly diminish in Wyoming. We'll see. We'll see. I think you're underestimating what's going to happen. Oh, thank you, CJ. Jim Whitehead. I often hear the first house you get pretty much everything right is the third you build. Well, I've only built one, so I'm about to build a second. So you need the land for it. So if you're building outside of Austin and you build a loop from the project to the factory so people can get to the factory really quick and easy, you can find cheap land outside of Austin. If you're doing Boca Chica, land is really cheap near Boca Chica. So you buy a few acres and you do it. Jim Whitehead, ground solar is cheaper when being added to a good roof if you have lots of ground. So it works in rural Australia or the desert a lot. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying, Scott. They do a solar installation for the whole development. They do a mega pack for the whole development. A mega pack is more cost effective than 100 power walls. I think it makes sense. Ground solar is not cheaper when roof solar is from scratch on a new roof. I'm not sure that you're correct, Cliff, because I think the solar roof tiles are really expensive. That's the problem. I don't know. And then the maintenance of the solar is more difficult if it's on the roof than if it's on the ground. Ground mount is more expensive. I have a 17.55 kilowatt system ground mount because my roof area is not big enough. Interesting. Okay, so there's another theory there. Well, roof solar makes sense because the space isn't useful, but if you have the space, I'm just curious about that. Elon's mentioned 3D a lot. Do you think 3D printing really changes the world like we all thought? Elon said that 3D printing is not good for producing in high volumes. They use it for SpaceX, they use it in some ways at Tesla, but for producing high volume things, it's not. I actually have a theory, this is one of my theories, I may have mentioned this in a video already, that Roadster will have a 3D printed frame. It's in one of my recent videos. Because Roadster won't be high volume. And I think 3D printed AI designed frame. That's my theory. Roadster's going to be amazing. Do I think Roadsters will play much of a part in the Robo Taxi network? No. I think Roadster is a halo car that will be a lot of fun for rich people and will be trivial in the grand scheme of things. In terms of Tesla revenue and everything else, it's in my models. Roadster's tiny. There's just not enough people who can afford Roadster. My HOA will not run ground solar on my tiny lot. Right. No, what I'm saying is Tesla builds an entire neighborhood and they put the ground solar in as part of the neighborhood. Ground solar is weight. So Barron says ground solar is cheaper. Somebody else said it's not. Utility scale giant fields of solar is much cheaper and is ground mounted versus distributed on top of 10,000 houses. I think for a neighborhood, ground solar would make sense if you did it right. RainX for solar roof. Interesting. The whole premise of the solar roof is cheaper than a good roof. Yes, it's cheaper than a good roof plus separate solar panels. But suppose you're making cheap housing with cheap roofs. Then ground solar might make more sense than solar roof. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Some people who are renters use ground solar so they can take it with them after they move or get kicked out. That's interesting. Jehu Garcia also uses flexible solar strips on top of the roof. See his channel. Interesting. 3D printing will be booming soon. Got a toaster. No other car can compare to Roadster. That's true, but I can't afford $250,000 for a car. Integrate. Well, I guess I'll be able to afford a Roadster when I sell my Tesla stock, but I don't really care about driving a fast car anymore. It's strange. I used to be a aggressive driver. Now I'm optimizing my efficiency. I don't think that's true, Vaco, that you need to replace a cheap roof sooner than a good roof. I think that my last house had asbestos house shingles, and it lasted 25 years. And my current house has fancy roof, and I think roofs in general are rated for 25, 30 years. And it's not really the roofing; it's the stuff under the roof that goes bad, not the roof itself. Concerning the shirt, how is Denki Kudama pronounced? It's pronounced Denki Kudama. But this is Denki Shop. Oh, this is Denki Shop. Denki Shop. And Jidosha, this is short for Denki Jidosha, not Kudama. Denki Jidosha. Sorry, that's my Japanese. It slipped out. I will be able to afford the Roadster. I won't buy one anyway because I don't care that much. I suppose if it has the SpaceX package, maybe. With large-scale solar, it is 5 to 10 times cheaper per kilowatt-hour of energy produced. I believe you. A small ground-mounted system is more expensive than an extremely large. So the question is, if you're doing a ground-mounted system for 100 homes, that would be a large system. It would be cost-effective. Who is Tesla's competition? So I don't believe Tesla has competition in the way that people think. People always talk about, oh, there's this new EV coming, it's a Tesla killer. It's nonsense. Okay? Tesla, anybody who makes an EV is working with Tesla to compete with the internal combustion engine industry. Anybody buying a Volkswagen ID3 wasn't going to buy a Tesla anyway. They were going to buy a Volkswagen with gasoline. Anybody who buys a Chevy Bolt was going to buy a Chevy. They weren't going to buy a Tesla. The goal, Tesla sells every car they make, so somebody else makes an EV, so what? The competition is getting rid of ICE vehicles, not other EVs. Okay, Elon Musk has commented on many occasions. I agree that roofs are unused resources, but if Tesla is able to radically reduce the cost of solar roof to make it competitive with ground-based solar, then it absolutely makes sense. I'm just saying, if you were building a development and you wanted to do solar, it might make more sense to have one set of ground-based solar for the homes and a cheap roof than it does to put solar on the roof. I'm not saying I know the answer. I'm just saying I think that's a possibility. Well, if I had to choose below zero, I would choose Roadster. Then I would sell it and buy 2 Cybertrucks or 3 Cybertrucks. or I would buy a Cybertruck and keep the cash. And Cybertruck is fundamentally more practical than Roadster. Roadster is a toy. Cybertruck is something that's very, very useful. Government regulation is the competition, absolutely. Why full FSD rollout is likely the next big Tesla valuation catalyst. Well, I think scaling production is the next big Tesla valuation catalyst, and full FSD rollout I think is still a year away or more. I think the scaling production in 2021 is going to be a big eye-opener for people. Larry, thank you for your contribution and your comments as well. Harry Lane, exactly. Let's see. Aerodynamics will increase efficiency. Okay. What do I think of Gordon Johnson? I am going to be making a video. I have started outlining a video about the Tesla Q Fudsters. And Gordon Johnson is one of them. I'm going to go through their arguments and show why they're wrong. The investment analysts and the journalists like Charlie Grant from the Wall Street Journal, Russ Mitchell from the LA Times. I think Gordon Johnson is trivial. I think Charlie Grant in the Wall Street Journal and Russ Mitchell at the LA Times are much more damaging. What about 3D printing homes? I don't know that 3D printing is the answer. I think some kind of method of doing homes, but I don't know if 3D printing is the right solution to that. Elon has said 3D printing doesn't scale, so I don't think so. Roadster will probably command premium fares. I'm not paying extra to ride in a Roadster. You know, what's the advantage? No one wants high performance in their Uber. When you're getting an Uber, you're not looking to get a high performance ride. You just want to get there and you want it to be comfortable. I think that Robo Taxis will be low performance. I think they will have low cornering. They will have low acceleration. They will have low braking. I mean, they'll be capable of braking hard, but they will be designed for efficiency and they will be designed for comfort, not for high performance. They need 4 to 5 more factories, etc. Let's see. Design the solar roof to mount directly on trusses, eliminating the plywood substrate. That's an interesting idea. I don't know whether that's viable. I think there may be a reason why they do it the way they do it. Do I think Elon will ever make a Tesla road bike? No. But he's making the ATV, so maybe he's bending on that. How many Tesla stock do you own? I own between 50 and 5,000 shares. People ask me all the time how much Tesla I own. I own somewhere between 50 shares and 5,000 shares, and I'm not going to get more specific than that. But I will say this, it is 75% of my individual retirement account. I have more than one IRA, and it's only in one IRA, but my big IRA, it's 75% of that. And I have more equity in my house than I have Tesla stock. So let's see. FSD follows the speed limit. Yes, I think we're going to see in the future that speed limits will change for full self-driving. That the cars are so safe that they will be allowed to go fast. It'll take a while, and it'll be dependent on the jurisdiction. You know, don't count on that in Massachusetts or New York. But roadsters are rare. Maybe there will be people who pay for a ride in a roadster. I wouldn't pay for it unless I got to drive it. I don't want to ride a roadster. I want to drive a roadster. Community Mega Pack pitch model is similar to Asphalt Driveway Company model. Your neighbor's getting one. We're in the area with extra hot loads of asphalt. Now we can give you a deal. I don't know what you mean by that, Noodles. Do you think that Lordstown will produce a truck? I don't even know what Lordstown is. Sorry. I think that when we enter a world where everything's self-driving, where there's no human drivers, then a two-wheel vehicle could make sense. I still don't think it makes sense, but it could make sense if it's self-driving and it's perfectly safe. I wonder if the ATV will have limited speed. You know, like it won't go faster than 40 miles an hour or something to be a little safer. Or if they're going to have some kind of hidden safety feature like airbags built in that protect you if it rolls. Who knows? Big government is Tesla's only real threat. Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. No, Tesla won't make a motorcycle. Cybertruck Plaid. The Tri-Motor is Cybertruck Plaid. I'd rather have a Model S Plaid or otherwise than Roadster myself, but I really want to. I want my Cybertruck. The long-range Model S to me is amazing, but Plaid will be cool. David Cohen, you asked about motorcycles 3 times. I said no 3 times. Stop asking. Oh my God. Joel Sapp, thank you for your contribution. I hope you have 5,000 shares. If you're right with 40,000 share price by 2030, you'll be worth $200 million. I don't have 5,000 shares. I jokingly said between 50 and 5,000 because it's such a big range. If I had 5,000 shares, I would be a very happy person. Let's see. Watch out, Tesla owners. ICE car owners love to damage Tesla cars. I think that's exaggerated. I think it happens, but it's rare. Do I think the inside of vehicles will change much once Robo Taxis are mainstream, such as beds for long trips? Yes. I think that there will be specific long-range models of Robo Taxis that will be designed for more comfort and more cargo. I think we're going to see a wide variety of vehicles. I think the Cybervan is like the dream. Like when people talk, like I kind of want Cybertruck, but if they came out with the Cybervan, I did a video on. I think a lot of people would love Cybervan. It's basically like an RV. It'd be fantastic. How will police enforce FSD? I have a video where I talk about. I think police basically become irrelevant in a world of full self-driving. Why would the police stop an FSD car? What's the point? Do I think Tesla and Microsoft will make an AI together? No. I think Tesla's already making its own AI and it doesn't need Tesla for that. It doesn't need Microsoft for that. Tesla wheels are being stolen at a high rate. I don't know about that. Cyberquad needs the SpaceX package. That would be cool. That's one of my jokes is that Tesla's going to make... People keep seeing somebody riding around in a jetpack in Los Angeles and people are speculating it's Elon. So, you know, the Tesla jetpack, maybe that's coming. When the robo network is in full swing, police departments will go... I think police departments become irrelevant. The question is whether government will... I've done a series of videos. If you go and look at my videos, I've done a series of interviews with politicians, candidates, whatever, asking them what about when self-driving cars are around, how will government respond to that? And it's like, you get blank stares. They literally cannot grasp. This is why it's so comical that we think government should tell us how to live our lives when they're clueless. They know how to win elections. They don't know how to live our lives. And they're completely not ready for a world of self-driving cars. Do we still have DMVs? What do we have a DMV for? If does Tesla just deploy vehicles and we don't even need a DMV anymore? Do we still need? What happens when nobody's getting a driver's license? What happens to the revenue? Do we still have staff in a DMV sitting there doing nothing? All those things are crazy. Any Cybertruck mods you want to add to your build? That's a great question. I don't have a good answer to. I want the solar pack, even though I think it's probably not going to be that useful. I want the fold out, like solar on the back panel and then additional panels you can run out to the side. I think Cybertruck or Cybervan could be like the apocalypse vehicle. You don't need a house, you have your apocalypse vehicle. Let's see, will other EV car manufacturers use Tesla superchargers? I think that Tesla's going to make that possible. I'm not sure. I don't know if the other EV car manufacturers are willing to. Tesla will make autonomous drones, not jets. I don't know. Elon's talking about VTOL. He just tweeted about it yesterday or today. He wants to do it. Thank you, Tatsuo. Tatsuo Goya. Nihonjin desho ka? Tatsuo looks like a Japanese name. But Goya, I'm not sure Goya is a Japanese name. I don't recognize Goya as a Japanese word. I live in Virginia and on Interstate I-81, a 1-mile stretch is called the... Oh, yeah. Well, so if you guys don't know this, I'm a traffic lawyer. I've handled over 4,000 traffic tickets in my career, and every interstate highway everywhere is a speed trap. They're all speed traps. Maybe not Montana. Jeff, will there be only one model for Robo Taxis? No. I think it's very clear that we're going to have... I believe that we're going to see the Podcar Robo Taxi, which is going to be a single passenger vehicle. That will be the most common Robo Taxi out there. And then we're going to see... Like Cybertruck will be available as a robotaxi when you need to go to Home Depot and carry a bunch of stuff. When your family wants to go somewhere and you got a family of 4 people, then Model 3 or Model Y will come pick you up. When you're taking a bunch of kids to college, maybe it's Cybertruck or maybe it's Model X or something. And the Cybervan, some kind of van-like vehicle, would be available as a robotaxi for mass transit or for large groups. Somebody says, can Teslas get stolen? So somebody stole a Tesla in Australia and the owner was able to track it down with their phone app and slow it down and call the police while they were chasing it, and they ended up caught, the bad guys. It was hilarious. Motorhome robotaxi. Well, the Tesla van would be eventually a motorhome. A lot of potential there. 2-wheel Teslas will be critical in big cities. I think that there's an interesting question about how it works in India. The big cities like in India, but I think the Boring Company provides a better solution to that problem than small vehicles on the roads. We'll see. Superchargers are ready for cross-maker use today. I think that's true. Can you explain the math on how Tesla gets to 1 million vehicles next year, please? Sure. Great question. This is from Yatin Keddy. What's the math on Tesla doing 1 million vehicles next year? So we know from the third quarter report that Fremont alone has a capacity of 590,000 vehicles. Okay? Just Fremont should produce 500,000 Model 3s and Ys and 90,000 Model S's and X's. Okay? So we're over 500,000 there. Shanghai, I believe it's 250,000 for the Model 3 factory. That's current capacity. And then Model Y factory will be opening soon, maybe before 2021 even starts. And Model Y will probably produce more than, it will be capable of producing, in the long run, more than 250,000 vehicles. So Shanghai is going to have the capacity of somewhere between 250,000 and 500,000. And I think it's close to 500,000. So you're at 1 million there. 500,000 in Fremont, let's say 300,000 in Shanghai, and you're at 800,000. I think it's going to be more than 300,000 at Shanghai. I think we're looking at more like 400,000 or 500,000 at Shanghai. That's close to 1 million there. And Berlin is going to start producing somewhere in 2021, and Austin is going to start producing in 2021. And if between them they produce a couple 100,000 vehicles, you're already well over 1 million vehicles. I think that answers that question. Let's see. Autonomous Cybertruck picking up lumber for you at Home Depot and bringing it back safe. I think they will work something out with places like Home Depot where the Cybertruck shows up. They have a winch that loads it into the back of the bed. It drives over to your house. You remove it from the bed, and it goes back to wherever it's going. Absolutely. And you're going to pay more per mile for a Cybertruck robotaxi than you're going to pay for a regular robotaxi, especially if it's in that kind of use. There's going to be pricing differences depending on what vehicle you use. What is your advice if I take loan to buy Tesla stock? I do not give personal investment advice. Personally, I don't like the idea of borrowing money to buy stock, but that's my personal situation. You need to talk to a qualified investment advisor, and I'm not that. Let's see. The Model X will be discontinued. I thought the Model X would be discontinued. I do think it will eventually be discontinued, but apparently they sell more X's than they do S's. So I think there's a lot of demand for Model S and X around the world for people who want luxury vehicles. I mean, honestly, if I had to pick one car and it wasn't Cybertruck, I would pick the Model S long range. I think the Model S is spectacular. And the Model X is gorgeous. So should people wait to buy until the million-mile Tesla car comes out? I don't think so. I think if you need a car, you buy a car. Sorry. Cybertruck robotaxi doesn't make sense. You can do this with, you can do what with a $25,000 car? You're not going to send a $25,000 car to pick up a load of lumber at Home Depot and bring it home to you. You're not going to send a $25,000 car on a long trip to take your kids to college with, 3 other kids and all their stuff in the back. That's there's a use case for Cybertruck robotaxi. Sales income and property taxes are bulk of funds for government operation besides donations. I don't use margin. It's idiotic on Tesla, which is I agree, it's a roller coaster stock. It's dangerous. I'm not qualified to make that kind of judgment. I don't do options. I don't do puts. I don't do margins. I just buy stock and hold it. So I'm not qualified to answer that question. Why won't Tesla move the charge port to the front of the car so people don't have to back into Tesla superchargers? I don't know. I mean, backing in is safer than going front in. If you don't know how to back in a car, backing in a car is safer than going front in, because the hard part is when you leave the parking spot. Backing in is easy. There's nobody there. When you're backing out, there's other cars in the lane that you're backing into. It's much easier to go front out and back in. It's safer. Once autonomous is there, reliable and safe, it will transform delivery companies by making it much cheaper to deliver. Yes. And drone delivery. I think Amazon is starting drone delivery soon, too. Yes, X appeals to upper middle class family. I have a friend who has a Model X and he loves it. I think the million-mile battery is already here. I agree with that. I think we already have million-mile batteries and they just haven't told us. When Model Y can seat 7, Model Y, I don't know about that. I don't know how much demand there is for a 7-passenger Model Y. We'll see. It's coming. We'll see. I think it's going to be tight. Yes, I think Boring Company tunnel in Las Vegas is really, really exciting. I'm excited about that. Do I think Tesla will ever have a robotaxi delivery service? I think there will be delivery services with robotaxis. I don't know if Tesla will operate or not. I think they probably will. I think, another idea is, well, what do they do with the robotaxis at night when no one's riding around? Maybe they do cargo shipments. Maybe Cybertruck is being used for cargo at night when it's not driving people around. I don't know. How do I rate current FSD beta out of 100% human level? So this is Debbie Maressa. How do I rate current FSD beta? So human level is not one level. I'm a better driver. I have a 15-year-old learning to drive, and I'm a better driver than my 15-year-old. She might disagree with me, but I'm pretty sure she would agree with me that I'm a better driver than her. So which human are we comparing it to? I think FSD beta is probably already better than my 15-year-old driver. And it's probably not as good as me. But how about if I've been drinking? It's probably better than me if I've had 6 beers. Defining human level is a challenge there, Debbie. I think that's something people don't think about. I think if you ask me, FSD beta is really close to good enough that it's probably better than some of the human drivers on the road already. I think by sometime in 2021, it will be better than the worst human drivers, which is not a huge challenge. There's a lot of bad drivers out there. So once it's better than the worst human drivers, I think it should be legal because we let the worst human drivers drive. And the first drivers it takes off the road are the bad drivers for whom driving is more expensive because insurance costs more. And if we had self-driving cars, I wouldn't have my kids learn to drive because my insurance rates go through the roof when my kid gets a license. So it was going to be cheaper to have a teenager ride in a Robo Taxi than drive themselves. And within 3 or 4 years, people aren't going to teach their kids to drive anymore. That's maybe sooner. The Model Y does not currently use 4680s. The Berlin Model Y will use 4680 cells. There will be a secret Hive depot where off-duty robo-taxis go to recharge. Yeah, I wonder if they'll be drinking alcohol when they stop. Will they call it the Mos Eisley depot? It'd be interesting. Backing in is safer with or without a camera. You should really check out how much FSD has improved. I believe that FSD has improved a lot. I've watched the videos, but it's hard to get a grip on that. I don't think it's how much it's improved now. It's how much it's going to improve in the next months and year. Elon is talking about the electric jet, so we'll see. Driving sleepy is the same as driving drunk, yeah. Really check, let's see. Does Tesla pay the tag fee? Probably, yes. If they have their own held robotaxi, then they'll pay the tag fee. They will probably never call it a 1,000,000-mile battery because people will expect a 1,000,000-mile warranty. Very interesting. Maybe that's why they're not calling it the 1,000,000-mile battery. Do you think future generations will find it hard to believe we used to drive cars ourselves? That's a good question. I mean, do we find it hard to believe people used to ride horses? People still ride horses, so no. It depends how far down the road you go. Yes, no, I ordered a Cybertruck to use as a taxi because many people come here with very large items for vacation. Yeah, I'm planning to put my Cybertruck into robo-taxi use most of the day. I want to make the money, I want to accelerate the transition, do my part, and then I want to have it for myself when I want to do something. All right, we've been going 2 hours. I think I'm done. I think I'm worn out. I want to thank everyone for watching. Really appreciate I want to especially thank my Patreon supporters. I want to thank my friend Joseph Ramos, J&D Consulting. There should be a link to his website there. If you need IT support anywhere in the country, check out Joe. But before I go, Rob Markovich asks, is Project Palladium a real thing, the redesign of Model S and X? It has to be. The Plaid Model S has to be Palladium. It's going to be front and rear castings, structural battery pack. It's going to be much lighter weight. It's going to be much more efficient. It's going to be amazing. It has to be Project Palladium, yes. So I want to thank my Patreon supporters, including Bradford Ferguson of Halter Ferguson Financial. Check out the merch. Check out the merch. This one, I love this one. Right now, this is my favorite shirt. This one, it's hard to convey how good this image looks. This image looks fantastic. This is the Berlin Gigafactory rendering, and I adjusted the color to make it look like sunset or whatever. The machine that builds the machine. This is my favorite shirt right now. I like this one. Nihongo ga dekimasu, so I like this one. So thanks everyone. I am done. Appreciate all your support. I appreciate your comments, and especially the super chats. And I will have a couple more videos this week and see you next Sunday. Will there be a robo-taxi lane? Let's see. So I'm going to stay on the chat for another 5 minutes. I think YouTube keeps the chat alive for another 5 minutes. I'm going to stay on the chat. So thank you everyone for watching.